You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites down harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. First day back in the studio and God seems like a month, but today I'm joined by Nathan
Daylorn.
I'm joined by Jake Gaylord. What's up, dude?
Oh, trying to get back into the flow of things. I mean, it sounds weird, but I don't know why, but I got like butterflies in my stomach right now just because we're jumping on another podcast. Like not exciting, just like I don't know, nervous butterflies. It's weird.
You haven't done this in a while, huh?
We haven't. It's almost it feels foreign.
I think it's been 3 weeks, but we had the holidays and then everybody's been hunting, obviously, in November. Your last priority is let's jump on the podcast, when you get home. Now we're back home finally and I'm back home from the holidays, but I came back to the hometown, Jake, and it left me with some beautiful COVID like I've got pretty much every holiday. This is my fourth time having COVID.
You don't know about that Venetian immune systems we all have here,
That's funny because my mom said there was an outbreak of COVID in Veneta. So it's not the immune systems I think everybody's weak immune systems are passing it around.
Well, I'm clean. So I don't know. And here I live smack dab in the middle. But then again, I am not a social person. Like for work, I'm basically by myself. I come home and I'm right where I want to be, not talking to anyone and by myself. And
you know what's funny is I met a guy the other day.
Let me turn
Texas.
the cedar off.
Okay. No worries. Jake's gonna turn the cedar off.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, I met a guy the other day in Texas, and he said, "Hey, I've listened to the podcast," and one of our mutual friends put us in contact, and we went to a Christmas party over at my friend Jack's house, and this fellow was there, and after I left, he told Lauren, he said, "Yeah, I listen to the podcast a lot, and Christian's not very social," and Lauren was like, "What do you mean by that?" She's like, "Well," he said, I just heard him on the podcast a lot, and I figured he'd be a pretty talkative guy, and he's actually really quiet."
Well, I guess it depends on the subjects, huh?
No, if you want to talk about deer hunting, I'll talk for 6 hours. But
right.
In a social situation, like a topic that I know, so I'm not one to be like, "Oh, football? Yeah, I know about Rashad." Yeah. Like, I don't, dude. I'm not the guy that can just banter about sports and stuff because I don't watch sports. Right. So. He was just like, yeah, he told Lauren, he is very not social. And I was like, I'm not very social.
Not going to apologize either.
No, which I thought that was funny, but no, yeah, I got COVID in Veneta. So the picture I sent Jake a picture before the podcast and we were kind of discussing on Tuesday. I got COVID on last Friday from Thanksgiving, and, my grandma went to the nursing home. She went to the hospital and then she went to the nursing home for 3 days. So I was spending the entire week with her. And everyone got COVID. Like it was like Justin got COVID and then my dad got it. Then I was like, damn, dude, I was literally hugging my 85-year-old grandma. Like she probably has COVID now. She tested positive for COVID. Everybody did. And that kind of stuff hits me pretty hard. So Tuesday, that picture I sent you is from Tuesday. I woke up and I was sitting up straight in the bed and I just felt water run down the back of my throat. And I was like, first of all, I just woke up. There's not water in my mouth. I was like, what is going on? And I went to to wash my hands and I started spitting up just like piles and piles of like blood that had been like running out of my sinuses or my nose and my tonsils.
Really?
And then mucus, like balls, like golf.
So it was just draining, basically.
Just blood was just in my mouth. I literally sat up in my bed and it ran down my throat. And I was like, what was that? And it was just blood that was in my nose. And yeah. So that's what it was. I'm sure it was a combo of mucus and just bloody nose and all that kind of stuff. But it was absolutely disgusting. Dang, like coughing up blood.
Good thing your hunting season, good thing you're not really, I'm not going to say you're not going to try because I don't know your schedule. We haven't really talked about that, but like, good thing you're not like freaking out. Does that make sense? Where you're like, I could put a
bow on it and be happy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it was a good time because it's hard to sit down. It's hard to not be out when it's November. And so having COVID in November, I was just like, okay, I have to sit this one out, but it's okay. I feel comfortable sitting it out, especially what happened on the 18th before Thanksgiving. But anywho, this episode, we're going to talk about something very special, something near and dear to everyone's heart, which I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this podcast have one of these as well. But our annual Oklahoma bow hunting rutcation, which
yes. The best time of year.
We started that in what, 2020?
That
was our first annual, where we all got together.
That was numero uno.
Which in 2020,
can you hear that train?
Yeah, it's fine though.
Okay.
Yeah. So in 2020, we always go rutcation on public land. Like that's mainly because everybody can get together and then it's just easier because there's a bunch more land. We don't have a spot where 5 people could go hunt at one time ever. Mm-hmm. So we get together on public. In 2020 was when we first started it, just camping in a little bitty tent, no heater, none of that stuff.
Yeah, but we were there before 2020, right? Like, but not for like that long of a stay. Yeah, I should say like before. I think we were there 2016, 2018 or 19. Like just for one weekend apiece, probably. Mm-hmm. And then 2020. So we have like maybe 4 days under our belt before 2020.
Yeah. But in 2020, we went in, no gear, no cooking gear, no nothing, shot a 131 and a 162. And we're like, gosh, we got this whole public thing figured out. And then Carol shot on another big one. We're like, man, this is the glory days. We got to start doing this more often.
Yeah.
And we've done it every year. and it's like got a little bit worse every time we've done it. The next year we go with Justin, the whole tribe, and it seemed like we could do no wrong because there was how many bucks that got shot. Justin shot
in
2.
2021?
Yeah, Jared shot 1. I shot 1, 4 bucks. Carol shot his 11-pointer.
That's true. That's true.
5. I think, but between 6 people, we killed like $5. Yeah. So that was another fantastic year for the rutcation. We didn't kill anything of size. I think we had like 3 that were probably 120s.
Sure,
we were knocking them down.
Good. What did Jared score?
It didn't end up being 130. It didn't end up Pope and Young either. I think it was up mid 20s. But you got to think about it. You look at a really nice 8-point and you're like, man, that's a beast. And then it's like 127, 128. So they don't always score. Right now. Yeah. They don't always score how they are perceived is what I would say. Mm-hmm. There were we had 2 or 3 that were like, dang, those are really nice. Like the one that I shot was only 120.
Oh, really?
That wider
but
one?
Yours was an 8, right? Like
a 6, you mean?
Was it a 6?
Dude, it had 2 inches worth of eye
nubs, right? Yeah. No, I was gonna talk about compare yours from this year's, but we haven't got that far, so I'll just wait.
Oh, 2022, we go down there. Justin shoots a mega.
That was that was last year, so that was kind of a weird year for us because we didn't do our normal scouting down there, which we thought because we were such hot shots the years before that we could go down there on a whim and
drew our first Midwestern tag too.
Exactly, but we figured we could either go off our historical data or just kind of figure it out on the fly, and I don't think that was the best scenario.
Would it didn't pay off? We came up with 0.
Us three got one. Yeah. Justin did good like always, but I mean,
well, and everyone got an opportunity. Like you had one, I had one, Carol had one that he didn't even shoot at that deer. So we all had opportunities at respectable deer that week. But didn't end up coming home with one. Justin came home with one. So that's kind of the background, is like we try to do this every year. It's just fun to get together on public because it's nice if you mess up a spot, you have another one. Whereas like you go to your lease or private or something and it's not working out, or you got the wrong wind, you can't hunt. So it's nice. You all get together. You can go hunt all over the place. People piggyback off each other. And between the 5 or 6 people we usually take, between me, you, Pate, Justin, and Jordan, it got bigger this year, but usually we'll knock down a couple.
Yeah.
At least, and sometimes the kicker on the rutcation can be an absolute mega. So
that's
true. Always the hope.
That's the potential. That's, I mean, yeah, I like hanging out with you guys, but that's kind of the draw to hunt where we hunt. It's just like, you're not going to see a whole lot, but when you do, if you hear like a few leaves crunching, it could be a spike or it could be like a 180. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Still waiting on that 180, but so let's fast forward to this year. We all went. The camp kind of grew a little bit this year. Mason came, Justin Jordan came like normal, and then Nate Osborne came too. He was another addition, but we had all
related to Clay. I think we already talked.
Don't know. I have no idea.
Gotcha.
Maybe I think some way, but
6 cousins, something like that.
Yeah. Anyways, we had hunted in there in October in the mountainous public land that we like to hunt, and I think we had some success. Justin shot a deer, so that was considered success. We were chasing a good one.
Did you see anything?
Yeah, that was when we went back 2 miles deep, and we, you saw some deer, and then I had the deer kind of run past me, and little buck chasing some does. That was when all that transpired, and we hunted from I think a Thursday to a Sunday night or something like that. That's when we hunted. Yeah. Didn't see a ton of deer then, but also the conditions kind of sucked.
Yeah, it was like hot and windy.
Hot and windy, yeah. That's a double negative. That one sucked. But you feel that way, and then you go and Justin's like, "Oh yeah, I shot one. You call us a dog," and then we find it's like almost a 150.
Yeah. I mean, for his sake, I hope his luck doesn't run out. But dadgum, I kind of hope it runs out and it catches me.
Spills over. Man,
time to pass the torch.
Yeah. Well, Justin had already shot a buck on public with his bow like the weekend prior on there, which is like 120s. And then he comes back the next weekend. It's like October 15th, and he shoots a 144. Beautiful 10-point, freaking bladed eye guards, like nice frame, caramel horns. Like that buck was awesome.
I still think it's funny, like knowing what we know. Obviously, it scored 144, but he shot that buck like 15, 20 yards or something like that, and he said he had to like second guess on whether to shoot it or not, and it was a 144-inch deer. Now, granted, I know the reason behind it because he said it was October 15th, and he said he didn't want to be done hunting, but brother, there's 50 other states, or I'm sorry, 49.
Yeah, well, if I had shot let's just say I shot a 120. If a 130-inch 8 walked by me, I'd be like, God's plan.
Sorry.
It'd be, I'm serious. If a net Pope and Younger walks by me, if it was 132, I'd be like, I have to, like I have a bow and arrow in my hand on public land. What else can you ask for in terms of that, like, yeah, there's bigger deer around, but I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I'm going to pass a 140 on public with my bow. For a second tag.
He about did, but luckily he smartened up really, really quickly.
Right at the end, yeah. So Justin shot a good one. We got a dog, recovered that one, and then everybody kind of went their separate ways. I went on the recurve hunt, went hunting the lease. Everybody else hunted their places, and then we all got back together November 6th, I think is what it was.
Yes.
Well, me and you got there on the 5th.
Yeah. We just stayed the night, set up camp, and then we didn't set up camp till the next morning because we just slept in the meat wagon and got up, hunted that, which I'm thinking of October. So you were tagged out. No?
Yep. I had no tags. When we got down there on the 5th, I had no tags. My intention was I'm going to stay till probably about Friday, because God
bless you for that, because you did not have to stay, but damn it, did that help moral support?
Well, yeah, I wanted to be there. I mean, it's like same thing with Justin, though. Justin didn't have a tag. And it's just when multiple people, when you, Peyton, Jordan, Mason all have tags still, you're like, no. I'm going to get to put my hands on something. I might not be something I shoot, but my hands are going on some bone, as gay as that kind of sounds. But I knew that was going to happen. So I was like, I'm going to try to stick it out. And even as I'm leaving on Friday, I was like, I know people are going to still keep killing deer. Like I don't want to leave, but I need to.
That's about when it started heating up, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So we hunted Monday because Monday you went because your plan was to potentially hunt Arkansas. So Monday morning when I hunted that 2 mile spot trying to figure out what I was going to do for the week, you went and scouted over there at Arkansas. Did you see any type of sign? Like, I know, long story short, you ended up not buying a tag, but what was the reason for that? Obviously the drive was atrocious from camp.
Yeah.
But
there's not, when you're going through the mountains there in Oklahoma and in Arkansas, they share the same ranges, but there's no like straight shooting anything. Like, everything's around crap. So it's really only like 35 miles, but it ends up taking an hour because you're going around. But no, I drove over there and it was, I think, an hour and 5 minutes, like from when I left camp to when I pulled into this spot in the National Forest that I was looking in Arkansas. And I drove over there and immediately I'm like, well, this looks like a lot of the stuff that we normally hunt. But the thing about National Forest ground, the thing I've noticed, I've hunted the National Forest in the Black Hills in Wyoming. I've hunted the Black Hills in South Dakota and the National Forest. And then I've hunted some National Forests in Oklahoma. But I went over to Arkansas. And one thing about the National Forests is they don't seem as well managed. They're usually bigger, wilder chunks of land. So they're huge, but they're not doing prescribed fires.
Okay.
They're not doing.
That's what I was about to ask. Cause I wouldn't think they'd be able to attempt to do that in like a national forest. Right.
Well, because they're federally managed. They're not managed by the state. They're a federal asset. They just, even going across like state lines, like they're a federal, obviously your tag applies to that state, but they're a federal resource. And so they're managed by the feds. And so they don't get prescribed burn. They don't get cut. Like they're just basically, imagine a thicker, wilder version of where we hunt. That's kind of what they are. And so they're good and they're raw and there's definitely deer. I pulled up and I was like, needed to take a leak bad. And I stepped out of my truck and I stepped into a deer track.
Oh,
so really? I was like, okay, that's kind of nice. Yeah. I went a few feet off the road and I saw a bunch more deer tracks. And one of them was a pretty good one, like palm of my hand size. It's like, okay, there's a buck. There's some bucks around here. My hope was, since Justin was tagged out, I was like, okay, I'm going to convince Justin to go with me. And then we can commute if there's two of us, like no doubt. Like the main thing for me was I'm in the National Forest in Arkansas. I have Texas plates. I had my 2 bucks that I had shot. So I had 2 skull caps in the truck already. One of them is the biggest buck I ever shot. So I'm like, I do not want that to get stolen. I have my computer. I have my cameras. I probably had $15,000, $20,000 worth of just merchandise in my truck. And I'm like, I don't want to leave this in the National Forest, like while I go hunt, So I drove over there the first day and just kind of scouted around, and I didn't really get out much. I just looked around, buying out some stuff. I was like, this looks pretty good. I'll come back if I can get somebody to come with me. I called Justin. He kind of wanted to stick around and help Jordan and stuff. So, and then I did the drive back. And I was like, dude, this is not going to work for a week. Like, if I come over here and hunt, it's going to be one time. And then I started looking at the prices, and one day it was like almost $200. And then they did it by days, like 3 days was like 300. And I think 5 days was a $400 tag. And then you could buy the whole year for 500. I was like, dude, Arkansas is just as expensive as Kansas. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't.
This is ridiculous. So, and I'm at camp and I'm trying to get some work done too, because I'm kind of halfway on at work, halfway off because I'm not hunting myself. So it was just
those days.
Yeah, there was too many things that were, I was like, and gas, dude. I'm like, it's going to be, dude, it's going to be $60 a day to come over here and hunt. So I didn't really feel like being $700 in a tag in Arkansas. So, yeah, that's kind of why I didn't. But you went out that first day, and before anybody was there, we did the meat wagon and slept in the camper that Jordan had. So what did you see on day one when I was in Arkansas?
Man, day one, I was kicking myself at the time because I got down there pretty late, because the day so that Sunday when we drove down, I was already driving down late because my dad and brother's birthday is like on the 6th and 7th, or the 7th and 8th, or the 5th and 6th. I don't know, somewhere around there. But so the day I left, which would be the 5th, that was Ira's birthday. So my dad and Ira were having like a birthday dinner or something at their house. And the last couple of years, I've never been there just because we've always been down there already. And so this year I was like, okay, I'm not like, there's no chance I'm going to be able to hunt this evening. So I'm like, I'll get there late, but might as well stay, spend some time with them and then go. And so I left their house around 9. I was already loaded and packed up. And so I didn't get to camp where you were till about 11:30, pretty close to midnight.
Yeah, real close to midnight.
And so we BS'd and talked for a little bit, and then you figured out the next morning whenever I woke you up, asking you these series of questions, because the whole night I was just wondering, because the spot where I wanted to be and where I thought I would have the best success for this one certain deer that we were after, and in general, like, there's probably less intrusion there. And
just a good rut spot too.
Exactly. So the only problem with that is it was like 2 miles from where we parked to basically sitting in your stand. And, it's pretty rugged terrain, and we have a history of running into rattlesnakes and all that stuff. And I know you don't have the best signal back there. And I don't know, I was just getting inside my head where it's like, is that really, I don't know. I don't want to be called a sissy, but if you want to call me sissy, that's fine. It's just like a safety factor. Because at the end of the day, like, hey, this is just hunting, and I want to be as safe as possible. So, I mean, if you're going to be in Arkansas, possibly have no signal, and then I'm going back here, like, I really wasn't scared of much except like just the snake aspect, because you're 2 miles back there, and it's not like you can get signal or anything quick. So I was just overthinking some things. But long story short, I didn't go to bed till like 2:30 that night, because I was sitting there looking at different OnX points, and like, if I wasn't going to go back there, where was I going to go? And so I went to bed at 2:30, and to get back at this spot by daylight, when it gets, I forget at the time if daylight savings happened or not, but
no, it happened on that Monday.
Did it?
Oh no, it might have happened that day. I think it happened on the 6th. Let me look real quick. But yeah,
we weren't late, but I think it got shifted back. So let's say it got daylight at 6 now instead of 7. Yeah, you're right. And so I went to bed at 2:30, and from the camp to get back there just where we parked, it takes about an hour. Or
started on the 5th, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cool. It got light a lot earlier than, like, it was fully lit at like 6:15. You could like shoot.
Yeah. So it takes an hour just to get to where you want to park the truck, and then about 45 minutes hike in. And so I was thinking, I was like doing the math, and I was like, well, I have to leave here by about 4, get to the spot around 4:45 to 5, and then comfortably to walk in quietly, get all your camera gear set up and all that stuff. I have to leave here in an hour and a half, and this is the very first day of vacation. And
way to kick it off.
Exactly. And I've almost been up for damn near 24 hours straight. And so long story short, set the alarm. I sleep for maybe an hour and a half, and go wake you up and I had this discussion, what we just talked about on where you think I should go. And you made a good point. You're like, if you don't go here and you sit at one of the other spots, are you going to be thinking about this spot the whole time if you don't see anything? And I'm like, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, I think you should go. And so I did.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice spot to have a buddy, because 100%. The long walk, you can talk the entire time, and you can just like, literally, you don't have to be quiet for the first 35 minutes of the walk because you're 2 miles away from where you're going to sit. So it's nice because you can be like, man, this walk sucks. But you talk about other crap, and it's just easier because you're like, well, if one of us dies out here, at least somebody knows,
Yeah.
But
yeah. I don't know. That's just some things.
So you headed out there.
Yeah. So I get set up and I'm running a little behind, but I kind of hoof it out there. But, as soon as you get to the spot, I'm like really creeping through, taking my time, because in my mind, I'm hunting for that big deer. And so I'm like, anything can happen. I'm going to do this pitch perfect, even if I'm a little bit, I'd rather be quiet than early. And so as I'm setting up, like it's starting to get that gray light, but I mean, I don't hear anything, nothing blew at me. So I think I think I'm good. Well, long story short, it doesn't even matter because I don't see anything that whole morning. I set till noon. And then the only reason I didn't sit like a little bit later, just because I had to take a dump. And I was like, well, since I'm already down off here, I might as well go that, 300 yards and check those other set of cameras. Cause I had 3, you had 3, and check mine. There were some decent bucks, but not the kind that makes you want to walk 2 miles. So I packed up all my stuff and was going to check your cameras over there. And if those were, if those had that buck on it or another good one, then I would have just set up over there. But long story short, those didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
So I gather up all the cameras and trek back. And by the time we get back to the truck, it's probably about 2, probably, I think. And because I sat there for 15 minutes trying to find your cameras, which you didn't have pinned correctly.
I knew where they were.
Yeah.
By the way,
truck.
By the way, I wanted to say that people are probably like, dude, you don't have to go 2 miles deep in public. No, absolutely. You're right. But the only reason we did that was for a specific deer. Like we wouldn't have done that for anything else. So we were doing that for a specific buck that we liked. So I just wanted to throw that out there before people were like, dude, you're overthinking it. No, we know you can hunt 300 yards off the road. And we did the rest.
Yes.
Like you guys did a lot of the trip. So that's not what that was. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. So I basically said to hell with that area because that one buck wasn't on it. And we haven't had picture of it since late August. So I was like, I'm not going to waste the vacation trying to find that deer when they're chasing it. That thing could be 5 miles away now.
Yeah.
The time to kill it was the extended weekend. We went there, during October, because if he was somewhere in the area. So I went to a different spot and I got set up there about 2:50, 3 o'clock, somewhere around there. And where I wanted to go, it was the Horseshoe, but there was about, I don't know, I passed a Dodge. Oh, what was it? Like a
Caravan?
No, it wasn't a Caravan. That's like an actual van. It's like a, shoot, what was it? I don't know. Some blue Dodge truck van thingy. I don't know. It wasn't a Caravan.
Little SUV.
Yeah. And ended up talking to him. He was from Tahlequah, super nice. And but he was in there. And the way this little spot works out, there's like one little creek drainage that kind of runs through it. And I didn't want to walk under him at 3:30, depending on how far he is back there. So I decided to be a good public land hunter and continued on a little bit, probably, I don't know, 600-700 yards down this creek. And I got out and just walked in from the other side and just kind of set up literally 150 yards off the road. Like if a car drove by, I could see what kind of car that was just because how close it was to the road.
You're like, he's eating a Butterfinger.
I was just done because I literally walked that after only getting maybe an hour of sleep. And after going back and forth and checking cameras and packing all your crap in, like the bag's heavy with the camera gear, the platform sticks, all that stuff. So I was already like ready to go home and go to bed on day one. I walked in and I set up just because I seen a pretty decent sized rub and I was like, okay, this is good enough for me for this evening. And sat there. I seen a doe right at last light, and then that kind of concluded the first day.
First day. So we that would have been Monday, and then when did people start showing up? I believe it was like Tuesday.
Carol showed up Tuesday, and then Mason showed up Wednesday.
Okay. So Tuesday you can continue to hunt some of the same area. By the way, like this is November 7th now on Tuesday. Is there any consideration for like, okay, rut's happening, I'm looking for a certain funnel, or are you just still looking like, okay, I just want to be in a good area that I know historically has good deer movement, or I've seen bucks in here in the past?
Well, at this point, my number 2 was, which spot I'm talking about, the spot that has the horseshoe. Yep. Years past, I always sat there as like a last ditch effort if I still haven't filled a tag. And each time I sat there on the very last day of the very last sit, I seen a buck. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, why not just start here now and see what happens? Well, long story short, there was more people there than I would have liked, because there's probably 2 trucks that were up at the top of the hill. And then I just now passed that little blue Dodge, kind of where I normally park. And after talking with that blue Dodge, after the Monday hunt, he said that the 2 trucks at the top of the hill were also from Tahlequah, and they were loaded down 3 deep in each truck. So there were 6 people hunting this one creek system that had maybe 3 ridges running through it.
And it's a really good funnel, but they're not that stupid.
Yes. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, this was my number 2. So now that's gone. And then, which I hunted it the next morning just because I left all my stuff, and I seen that doe at last light. So that gave me a little bit of hope. And I was hoping maybe the next morning that those 6 guys coming from the top would maybe push something down in the morning, if they got in late or something. And
it's kind of public though, in general.
I mean, yeah, you just gotta, I don't know, think about those type of situations. And I mean, because that's very likely to happen.
Know where the pressure's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. So Carol showed up, and then he hunted back there with me. I think that there ain't no way I hunted there that evening. It doesn't matter. Long story short, me and Carol didn't see anything for a few days after Tuesday. So, but Mason got into town, and he had some luck really quick.
Oh man. So I was kind of just hanging out by camp, like sleep, work, do some stuff, go to town, take a shower, do some work, get some Wi-Fi, come back, text people, see them what was going on. Just chilling. So Mason gets there Wednesday, and he stops at the casino and wins.
It pissed me off. Not the casino part, but just that he got there Wednesday, and then the next morning he connects.
Oh yeah, he gets there Wednesday. Stops at the casino, wins $700. He's like, yeah, it's gonna be a good trip. I'm like, oh sweet. Well, I'm in bed Thursday morning, and he calls me, and it's like 7:15, something like that. I'm like, okay, he's calling me. He's either fell out of the tree or shot a buck, and I missed his call at first. I call him back.
It's really either really good or really bad.
Really bad, yeah. I call him back. I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, first thing, the mountain signal, you're like,
yeah.
That's what the phone calls sound like. He goes, shut up, monster. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what? You're gonna? I was like, say that again. He's like, shut up, effing monster. And it's like coming through, and I'm like, all right, I heard monster. And I was like, he's like, can you hear me? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, dude, I shot a monster. It's a big one. And I'm like, okay, how big? And he's like, way bigger than anything I've ever shot. Mason's biggest buck was like a 137. I was like, dang, pretty big one then. And I was like, did you hit him good? And he's like, dude, he said, I only got like 3 inches of penetration. I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, listen, he started bow hunting, I think, last year. It's easy to get very antsy and stuff, especially when you shoot a big one. I'm like, all right, back out. I was like, go back to the truck. I was like, I'll meet you there and we'll figure this situation out. We'll figure it out. It's not 5 minutes later. He calls me, he goes, I found him. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I found him. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said, I was walking back to the truck and I stepped on a leaf with a bunch of blood on it, and I just followed it for a little bit, and he was laying right there. He had heart punched him, went through the shoulder, heart punched him, only got like 3 or 4 inches of penetration, went all the way through the heart, and the deer made it like 150 yards still. So I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And so I'm like, he's like, dude, it's a big one. I'm like, okay, heck yeah. So you'll see in the footage that I gave you, but I was like pumped up about it. I was like, let's go. So I'm filming myself, and I go down there and I meet him, and it's about to freaking pour like where we're at. I'm like, all right, where is he? And we walk down there to him, and it's a freaking beast. Like, it's a mid 140s 10-pointer, one beam's 24.
Yeah,
and the other one's
thing.
Dude, Beamzilla. Yeah. Big frame, like 6-inch eye guards, like good, just a little bit of everything. Not crazy mass, but they don't have crazy mass in most down there. But no, it was awesome. So we literally talk about the ways to drag out your deer. We got him and straight over the shoulder. Like,
really?
I got 2 legs over each shoulder, and the head's like on one side, and I'm holding them, and Mason's got the back. And we're like walking, and all it is rocks, dude. So every time you step, you're about to roll your ankle. And at this point, when we got the deer gutted, I got some amazing pictures, by the way. Did you see that Mason's picture got put on Summit stands?
I seen that, yeah.
And that was that picture was a good picture. And so we drug him out, and it is piss pouring at this point. We're like falling over every rock. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, we're definitely going to remember this one. Get him loaded up, take him back to camp, and everybody's pretty pumped, but Jordan, because Mason ended up shooting this buck 200 yards from a spot where one of our other buddies was planning on going that evening. So,
well, it was kind of funny because so Carol got there Tuesday, and then after that we were jumping around, like, I think each sit like spot to spot, just trying to like see a deer, find deer, bump deer, do something. And so on Thursday morning when Mason killed, I was hunting back there by the Booner spot, and it started raining, and I just took an extended way out. I don't know Mason like shot one yet, and I get signal, and Mason sends me a Snapchat, and 2 Snapchats. One was like you get the little blue thing where he sends it in chat, and then like purple for video. So I watched the video first, and it's him, and he's like, just shot a Booner in Vans, and he's like, and at this point I'm like, is he trolling? Is he not? But he's already down out of the stand, and it was like, yeah, I received it like 2 hours ago, and I was like, okay. And then I look at it again, and it's him holding a freaking swamp donkey, and I'm thinking, this son of a gun. Like, I go in, get me a coffee and some like breakfast, and I sit in the corner of this parking lot, and where I'm backed into a spot, and I'm just like on my phone, I just got off the phone with Abby, and like I'm just watching YouTube, like just eating breakfast and just like chilling for a second. And all of a sudden I see this camo car pull in the gas station, go to the gas pump.
The rut wagon.
Yeah. And I see Jordan get out, and he goes in, and I'm like, hell, maybe Justin's with him or something. Like, and no one else gets out. He walks in for about 5 minutes, comes back out, pulls around, and he said he didn't see me this whole time, and he just sits in the parking lot for like 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes, I'm like ready to go back up there, and he just stays there, and I think he was gone probably 30 or 35 minutes after me, was he not?
Something I wasn't watching exactly.
Or was this a different time?
Something like that. He shows up later.
Yeah. So going to camp, and I mean, yeah, Mason wasn't lying. That thing was an absolute beast, but you could definitely tell there was some like, not animosity, but like just
deflation.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though that's not like the spirit it should bring.
Yeah. Put tape on him. The one that Justin shot in October was 144 and some change, and I think 6/8, and Mason was also a 144 and some sort of change. So they couldn't looked any different. The bucks couldn't have looked any different, more different, but they were both just tanks, public land tanks. And no, that was good. So fast forward, everybody keeps hunting. It was a really slow week. Like,
it was a slow,
not a lot of people were seeing
first 4 days.
Yes. So the first 4 days this is kind of something I feel like I've learned and observed is even in the rut, waiting until those primo days to spend the bulk of your effort. Because if you blow your wad or you go into the best 4, 5, 6 days of the year, but you've already been hunting for 5 days straight and hunting every hour of the freaking day, it just seems like you can't go in with the same enthusiasm on day 6, even though it's a really good weather front, and it just kind of wears you down. That's something I would do differently, is like hunting based on the conditions instead of like, hey, this is our rut date, whatever the conditions are, we'll hunt them, like, I don't think I would recommend doing that again. And I don't think I will do that going forward.
I don't think so, because I think that's exactly what we did, and that kicked our butts, because like I said, we got there Sunday night and it wasn't good. And we knew a front was coming later that week, but we were just like, hey, these are the dates. And like, it's November. So something's going to be happening somewhere. So let's just find it. But that was a mistake, because not only was it hot and windy the first 4 days we were there, like Monday through Wednesday or Thursday, that's what it was. And then Thursday is when that front came in. And so we're already tired, already beat up, and just an absolute monsoon comes and damn near takes our tent down.
Well, and people, I understand, we're not staying, like we say, we stayed in the camper the first night. That was because the guys that own the campers weren't there yet, and they got there. And so we're staying in a wall tent, which typically is like pretty awesome. But when you're in a low spot and it rains several inches in one day, legitimately, like the bottom of our tent went from dry to there's like 2 inches of standing water in some portions of the tent. And there is not a single portion of the tent where there is not water. So like you step off your bed and it's like closh, like you're stepping into a puddle, and nasty. Everything starts getting wet. Like my sleeping bag gets wet. Like
your whole sleeping bag like fell on like halfway in the water.
Yeah. No, there was legit outside of the tent, there was a pool that like if we would have pulled up the edge of the tent, it would have all came in. So we're sleeping in like dang near freezing conditions. And
yes, we had a tarp down, water. But the tarp wasn't, it's just an old tarp, and it has like a whole lot of burn holes from when we had the stove in there. And so it's basically just leaching through the tarp, if that's possible.
Yeah, and it's doing a dang good job of holding the water. I can tell you that. There wasn't holes in the spot, it was holding the water, which it just sucked because everything is getting wet at this point. Like it's cold, it's wet, and you're not seeing deer.
It's just insult to injury. Yeah.
It was. I mean, for me, I'm like, whatever. I'm not hunting. Like I can sit in here and be warm. But for you guys, I'm sure it's like, hey, I don't really want to get up in the morning. This sucks. I'm not seeing any deer, and it's cold, and I'm wet now, and my stuff is wet. Boots are wet. Everything's soaked. But anyways, you guys, but during that time where after Mason shot his buck on that Thursday was the evening that you went out and started to do some scouting in that fog.
Was that not the next?
It was Thursday.
You're right.
Because no
Jordan shot a deer. When did Jordan shoot his?
It was Saturday morning when Jordan shot his. Saturday because I was going, or Friday morning because I was
Friday.
Going.
That's right. Okay. So yes, 100% right. Yeah, that makes sense now. So that evening, obviously it's not good hunting conditions because the wind's just, and then, the fog starts rolling in and out. You can't see 10 feet in front of you sometimes. And then also the rain, it's just not comfortable to sit in, and getting the camera gear and all that stuff out. So everybody didn't hunt Thursday evening, but I was like, every other spot that I've jumped around to hasn't been good. So what I want to do is I just want to see a deer. So by the time I made that decision to go out and scout, it was only like 30 because everybody went and dried their stuff from that morning at a laundromat.
Yep.
And so that's what got us back late. And so, I get back and Mason's, kind enough to let me borrow his like rain jacket or whatever, because I didn't have anything like waterproof. I had stuff water resistant but not waterproof. And I went on a little hike. I walked down this little finger I wanted to check out, and it had a whole bunch of grass like all around it. And it was just this one little finger, and it kind of looped back up. And on the first little finger, I seen some dude stand. And I was like, well, do I sit in it for this evening? Because obviously he ain't going to come back out here. It's like 45 minutes till dark. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I'm going to go see a deer. I'm not going to just try to get lucky right here, because I have my bow. I'm taking my bow on a hike. I don't have anything else. I don't have my keys. I don't have my like a headlamp, rangefinder, or anything. I'm just literally going out there with my bow and seeing if I can't either get lucky and walk up on something that's bedded, or I don't know, but I just have my bow. And so I see this dude stand, and I see on onX, it kind of horseshoes around into this like other little finger. And I'm thinking, okay, let's just go check that out. And there's tall grass in between. Like, let's just go try to bump a deer, see what happens. So I work my way down to the bottom of this and work my way back up towards the finger. And I'm just going to make one big loop and then go back to my truck. And about, I don't know, a quarter of the way up this second finger, I jump a buck and a doe. And I just see glimpses of this buck, and I see just antlers. And I'm like, okay, that's a good amount of antlers. It looked big. Like, it looked really big to me from what I could see, but I couldn't like 100% tell you if it was like an 8 or a 10 or whatever. I just knew it was big. So I crept up there to that bed, and it had some like little wooden shrubbery stuff all around it. And all that woody stuff was just shredded, where like he would just been sitting there and just raking his head on. So I was like, okay, he's probably a pretty like outgoing buck from what I could see from his bed. And so I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up like 60 yards on this little finger right here, because it was just a slight finger where you could literally see, it wasn't like super thick, so you could see both sides of the field kind of. And that's what I did. I walked up, because he ran up the hill where I was walking, and I just marked a tree where I thought it would put me in the game if he went back to his bed and bedded there for some reason, even though that's probably not at all what he did. And then tomorrow morning when he got up, came back, I'm sorry, whatever he's doing, I don't know. I just wanted to be in that vicinity. So that's what I did. I went back to camp. I told you all that. I actually seen a deer for once on this trip.
Yeah.
And the next morning I go in there and set up. And this is what still eats at me today. The tree I had marked was more on the top of this little finger, because this finger was like on a like a little slope that was kind of tilted, and the bed was down here. And where I wanted to be was like halfway up. And again, it wasn't like super far, super long. It was probably like a 20, 25 yard difference from the tree that I picked out the evening before where I thought I should be versus the tree that I picked the morning of. Because the morning of, I was like, I'm being super quiet. You know, the wind's in my favor and all this stuff. I'm going to try to get even closer to this bed because I think I can. That was my thought. But I had a pin marked where the evening before where I told myself I need to sit. And I think that came back and bit me a little bit, because that next morning I'm set up for my strong side shooting, because I'm in the saddle, to be kind of towards that bed and kind of, you know, just if something works down that finger, I have more leeway on this side than I do this side. And so plus I'm walking in from this side, so I don't really expect many things to be coming from my weak side. So I'm just sitting there, and it's about, I don't know, 7:15, maybe 7:30, like just now starting to get daylight because the fog was still pretty heavy from the rain that night. And I just happen to look over to my right, and I just see a head about 60 yards away from me walking directly parallel with me, just broadside. And immediately I'm like, oh, damn. And I grab my bow, and I'm like, that's a big deer. And as I'm grabbing my bow and like trying to get it on this weak side, he's still walking. And I'm like, okay, I have this V, or these two trees that line up that are going different ways. And so they kind of make a V like this. And he walks past that, and I have about a 15-yard gap right here between these V trees and a cluster of trees that if he goes behind, like, I don't know if he's going to go down the ridge or if he's going to cup and do the horseshoe like I did the evening before. So I'm like sitting there, like trying to get turned around, and at this point, like I want to stop him, but I'm like, I know I'm not ready. Like even I don't even have him ranged yet. And he goes behind this cluster of trees. Like it happened pretty fast. And at this point, like I don't even have the bow like all the way around me yet, I don't think. And I'm like, damn it. Like I just now basically ruined my chance because I didn't have my head on a swivel enough. Like obviously there's really nothing I could have did, but I was still kicking myself at the time for like not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets behind those trees, and I don't remember what happened, but I remember actually I don't think I have my bow on the right side yet, but because I think after like 2 minutes of not seeing him anymore, I fling it back over here to just kind of sit because it was like super uncomfortable holding it like this because I thought he'd done walked away. And I'm still watching over there, and about 2 or 3 minutes goes by, and I see feet walking through this through those trees, and it's a doe. And she comes out about 45 yards completely broadside between the V trees and that cluster of trees. So I range her, and I know where she's at, and I see antlers walking behind her, and I'm like, okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to fast forward the story a little bit, kind of follows the doe, and the doe's still just like kind of milling around and like 45 yards broadside, perfect. And he kind of walks behind the doe, and I range a tree behind that buck, and it was 55. The doe was 45. And so I was like, he's 50 on the dot, probably. So he walks behind these V trees while I'm still trying to get situated. And it's like picture perfect because like here's one tree, here's the next, and he's right here. And he's like, like his head is in the middle of these V trees, just kind of like looking around. And the whole time I'm sitting here like waiting on him, still not like in the mindset of like, hey, now's my time to like let a little bit of tension out of my tether and swing around where I'm good for the backside shot with that strap over my shoulder. Like this is what I should have been doing. But at the time, you know,
I got in a trance.
Kind of. And also like the doe's only 45 yards, and like you're in a pine tree. So it's like, and he's a little bit on the hill. So we're basically eye level with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I don't want to move a whole lot because I don't want to bust this. And like, this is like my one chance. So like, I'm not going to move if I don't need to, because that's another thing. When I went to swing my bow over, whether that be the first or second time, the broadhead got caught on some tree bark, and the tree bark fell. And like, that's what got his attention through the V tree, where he turned and looked directly at me, and I seen his frame, and I was like, oh, dang. Like this is
Are you thinking
really
big buck from the night before immediately?
I mean, in my mind, yes, because I knew that buck from the night before was like a big buck. How big? I don't know. I just knew he was a big buck. And then he was also with a doe. Now I know it's the rut, and that could be any deer, but a big buck plus with a doe, like not just kind of barely, like not just, I don't know what I'm saying, but yes, I'm pretty sure that was the same deer, like in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you weren't situating for the shot, and you're just sitting there watching him between the V tree.
Yeah. So he stays there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, maybe even more. And looking back, like I should have just told myself, like, hey, you're either going to do this the right way or no way at all. And like, that's the mindset, like, I think you need, even if it is like a really big deer. And he's behind the V tree, and the whole time, like, I'm like kind of torqued over here, and like I have my feet kind of like on the very edge of the podium, and like trying to just torque myself enough where I can like get drawn back and get a shot on my weak side without having to turn all the way around. And he turns around because the doe turns around and starts walking towards that cluster of trees behind it. And he starts walking that way. And I knew I shouldn't have, I knew I should have drew back, and I was starting to draw back. So I was like, now's my chance. I get drawn back like 90% of the way, and like until you get to the valley. And all of a sudden, like, because like I'm still like my whole body's torquing this way. And so I'm like 90% back until the valley, and then all of a sudden it yanks forward. And so I catch it like halfway and then yank it the rest of the way back. And by this time, he's like, his head's behind the cluster of trees. And I'm like, meh. And I get it on him, I thought. And I was like, now or never. And it's, I mean, we talked about it, and I tried to tell you it was a combination of many things. Like, you know, I torqued my bow or whatever, but I mean, playing it back in my head just now, it's like, I mean, it was a combination of things. Like I tried to like squeeze it off, but squeeze it off as quickly as possible. So I guess you can classify it as punching the trigger because that's 100% what it was. But not only that, since it was like a half punch, half trying to squeeze it off, it didn't break whenever I thought it was going to break. And so when doing that, I'm like already trying to let my bow down and it moves right. And then I shoot and then it breaks. And so when I say it was, the arrow didn't even land in the same county as the deer. Like it was probably 15 yards to the right of it. And it just, I mean, they got scared. The doe took off up the hill. I don't even think the buck knew what happened. And of course, the buck chased the doe. So I watched that thing, probably an extra 30, 45 seconds, after it bolted 75 yards and watch it walk away. So that was that hunt that got me absolutely livid.
What are you thinking when you're watching? Like, can you describe the deer a little more? Like, you just said big one, a Big 10, I think wide, framey.
For sure 10 points. Like, I don't think he had any more than 10, obviously, but I just think he's a big mainframe 10. And I told you and Carol this. I was like, I look at my deer that I shot in 2020 every single day because I live in a very small house and it's smack dab in the living room. So it's kind of like I look at it every single day from every different angle. And that deer scores 162. And it's a nice symmetrical, 10 point. I mean, it's 11, but it's a mainframe 10. And then that deer like looked damn near identical. Like the frame, like really good frame. Like obviously I don't know about the mass, but like I'm iffy on the tine length, whether the tine length was like great or not, but like it was there. Like I think conservatively like 150. And I literally sat in my stand for like 5 minutes and like kind of cried, not gonna lie.
I mean, that's a perfectly normal reaction, especially after the year you had the year before. You don't get to shoot a buck or you don't connect on a buck. And then you're like, all right, all this work, all this scouting, all this effort comes down to one singular moment. And then it's like, okay, I'm watching him run away. This sucks.
Yeah. Well, because everything hits you at that point, like when you should be celebrating, it's like, damn, like I'm like
of the world.
Yeah. I'm like 6 days. Like I haven't been home in like 6 days at this point. And it's like, I'm getting a little bit homesick, I'm missing Abby, like, missing the dogs and all that stuff. And it's like, I could be, working. Like I have other responsibilities besides like hunting. And so it's like all that just hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's like, why am I here? And, but obviously like looking back, it's like, well, you're kind of being stupid about it. Cause like at the time that's the first thoughts that came through my mind. But at the time I should have been grateful that like, hey, I had this opportunity. I had this encounter. Like you need to be thankful you had a badass hunt this morning. Like obviously it didn't hook out, like work out, but that's part of it. And looking back, like I'm a lot more grateful now that I have actually a full night's sleep and a good shower. But I mean, at the moment, that's just what I was feeling.
Yeah. Well, and then it's also, you're like, okay, how much longer until another opportunity like that's going to happen? You realize, and then you're like, could be this year, could be next year, could be 2 years from now.
I mean, he was a tank, dude. He was a tank.
Yeah. I mean, and you gotta be, we talked about this a little bit, like you gotta be realistic about where you hunt and what's around where you hunt. That's about as good as it gets for most places we can hunt. Like that's about top end, private, public, like realistically, not a every 10-year kind of deer. Like what can you expect top end year in, year out? It's going to be around 150 inches. And so when one of those goes away, you're like, okay, there's a top end. That's exactly what I come here for. And when am I going to see another one? Probably not soon. Haven't seen one in 3 years. Like, yeah, it's just there's a lot of emotions on that. I remember when I drew back on the 7x5 in October, I was like, I've never seen a deer this big. And I was like, I won't see one this big for a long while. I've got a lot of good access. And I was like, please don't mess this up. This is the biggest one I've ever. That was immediately what I thought. I drew and I was like, it's like, please don't mess. I always have this concept or this thing that goes through my head when I see like one that I think is possibly the biggest one I've ever seen. I'm like when I connect my eyes to the horn, I'm always like, that's the biggest deer I've ever seen, like on the hoof hunting. And every time I do that, I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you thinking this way? And then that obviously ended up working out, but it's one of those situations when you see one like that, it's hard to compose yourself, but you don't see them often where we hunt is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
And so it makes the moment, it's not like you're hunting Ohio or you're hunting, not that these places are any less hard, but Ohio or Kansas or Illinois, it's not like, hey, another 150's coming. When you see that 150, it's the equivalent of like, this is my season ender. This is the kind of deer I'm going after. If I get one opportunity all season at a deer of that caliber, that's why I'm hunting. And when that one runs out of your life, you're like, okay, now my season's probably going to be subpar. I'm probably not going to find that again.
I've been using the new Exodus Rival cell camera for the last couple months, and I have found a beautiful mainframe 8-point with tons of stickers to go after this fall.
Ooh.
One thing I do appreciate about Exodus trail cameras is all of the cameras share the same data plan, so you only pay for what you need. A lot of cell cam companies charge you for HD pictures. I've seen prices of $5 for 50 HD pics. Exodus is going to give you unlimited HD pictures right to your phone, which is awesome when you're sitting there in the middle of the summer and it's 100 degrees and you just want to binge a bunch of trail cam photos.
If you're looking for a solid cell camera with great performance and a 5-year no BS warranty, go check them out. So as we all know, hunting gear is something people can make way too complicated. Arrows can be the exact same way. Instead of going down all those rabbit holes trying to sift through the endless information that's online and you're not really sure if it's right or wrong, Exodus makes it simple to get the right arrow for your exact setup.
So go online to the Exodus Arrow Builder. It takes less than a minute. You're going to enter your draw weight, your draw length, and how heavy of a point you're shooting. And it's going to be that simple. Let the guys at Exodus take care of the rest.
So if you're interested in Exodus Rival cell cameras or a new set of their MMT arrows, just go to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and use code HA15 for 15% off anything on the website.
Once again, that is ExodusOutdoorGear.com. Use code HA15 at checkout for 15% off. Now let's get back to the podcast.
I mean, we hunt a lot, and like throughout the years in Oklahoma, you and I like combined, I don't even know how many hours we've put in a tree.
Like thousands of hours.
A lot. And out of those years, like we just know, unless something just absolutely bonkers happens, that like you can hunt all this time, at least where we hunt. And if you have that one opportunity, you're done. You're done, because we know from years past, like you get one opportunity and that's basically all you get. Like no matter how hard you hunt the rest of the year, like that's about what you're
really
given.
Good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I mean, with that in mind, I was like, I mean, again, I was just torn. I was torn up. Like I didn't want to talk about it. Like, you know, I don't know. I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't. And then like after all that, I was like, I'm not going to say a word to anybody. And I didn't until like that night. And
you texted me and said, yeah, I just saw a giant. And I think it's before you had shot. And then we went to eat and I'm like, do you see anything? You're like, yeah, just like a little one or a doe or something. I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, texting me that you said you saw a giant. I was like,
I had to, because dude, I couldn't. I was just so sick to my stomach about it. I couldn't yet. And I didn't want to talk about it. That's not the way you should be, especially with your lifelong hunting buddy. But at the moment of little to no sleep and all those emotions just now hitting you, and like you're still deerless, I wanted to go home right then and there, to be honest.
Well, it's like a pressure cooker when you hunt. Like, not that, I'll say this, for the amount of encounters that we've had with deer that size, I think I'm talking as a collective group, like a broader group, like Justin, Jordan, Mason, Pate, everybody, you and I, as a collective group, for the amount of encounters we've had with those kind of deer, it typically works out. Like we're way above 50% on like big deer, like on bringing them home. And so you might look from the outside and be like, oh, you guys usually get one that size or better. But it's like out of the 6 people, there might be one encounter of a buck that size in a year. So it's like, there's a lot of pressure when a situation like that happens, because there's not one behind every tree, which makes it even that much more frustrating. You're like, motherfucker, that was.
But damn it, it makes it that much more like exciting whenever it does actually happen. You're just like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But a good takeaway that like that I learned from that deer though, is what I said previously is like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen the right way. And I think that it kind of really opened my eyes to that. Cause I was like, there's so many times now, granted at this point, I've never shot it like a public land deer out of the saddle. I've never shot a deer out of a saddle. Mm-hmm. Not even a doe. I don't know. For sure, not even a buck out of a saddle. So this was going to be my first bow buck out of a saddle. And looking back, I was like, I don't know how many times. Like, yeah, I was scared of like getting caught moving in the tree, but I don't know how many. Like, the thing sat there probably a total of 5 minutes in front of me where I couldn't shoot. And it's like, you telling me I couldn't have moved very, very slowly and wrapped around in the tree? Because after that thing ran off, I did that probably 40 times in that tree of like, kind of cinching it up where I think it needs to be and wrapping around. And I even drew back and like half of me wanted to release an arrow, but I was like, I can't waste another one of these broadheads because I didn't find the one I shot. Mm-hmm. And it even had a Luminok on it. So, yeah, that was the biggest thing. Cause even if it busts, it's like, okay, looking back now, would I rather have a shot that, would I rather shoot just to say I shot at one, or would, with a lower chance of actually hitting it good, or would you rather, do things the right way and higher your chances of like making a good shot on it and like potentially getting busted? It's like, for now on, I think I'm going to get myself in that best position possible to make the best shot I can. Well, even if it costs me that one encounter from maybe moving in a tree.
That's a good point. I know we haven't talked about the Texas decoy buck yet, but I was only like 14 foot up in the tree when I was hunting that deer. And I drew back like as the deer's walking onto the field, and he 100% could have saw me when that happened. But I was like, there's no way I'm going to get drawn back at 13 foot when he's going to be at 20 yards when there's no cover around any of these trees. I was just like, I have to get drawn back right now, and I'm risking spooking him immediately. Before I even get a shot, I'm risking spooking him. But I'm like, later in my mind, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get a shot later, even though it would be a lot easier to just let him come in and be like, okay, now I'll try. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's like situations like that, those little situations where it's almost like you have to like put a chip in the table and risk messing it up just to be in a position to shoot, or be ready to shoot. And it's like when there's a giant in front of you, you're like, no, I don't want to move. I don't want him to see me.
Exactly. Well,
I don't want to get
That's
pegged.
The thing. I think that's what stuck in my head and still sticks in my head. And like to this day is like when I went to position my bow over the top of that tether and I hit my broadhead hit like that piece of pine bark and it fell. And like, he looked at me and I was like, he's already on me. The only reason he hasn't bolted yet is because of that doe. Mm-hmm. But like knowing that, it's like, from years past, it's like usually you can do jumping jacks in your tree. And as long as the doe doesn't see you, if that buck's hooked on that doe, like he's not going to care.
Well, and I think we give them not too much respect. I don't think that's the right way to put it, but
credit.
Yeah, too much credit. It's like, dude, he's probably not looking up in the tree right now. He doesn't really have a reason. I understand if you knock the bark over and stuff, but like typically speaking, you can really kind of maneuver a little bit as long as you're not doing it fast and stuff like. Mm-hmm. And it's almost every time I see a deer, immediately my hands go places. Like before I'm just like reaching for cameras, reaching for bows and crap. I'm not even like worried. I'm just grabbing crap. I'm sure that's bit me a time or two, but I don't know. It's a hard balance because if you don't give them enough respect, they're going to peg you. But if you do give them too much respect, I think there's like I don't know how to strike a balance between the two, but I feel like you have to in your own way. Everybody's a little bit different too on when they do things, how they do things, the methodology, but it's tough when you got one in front of you. You're like, the last thing I want to do is mess this up.
Yeah. And that's the first buck I've seen in a stand like that for 5-6 days. And it's like, I'm not going to blow this opportunity. And I just blew it just a little bit later is all. So
yeah, it's like,
So that basically wraps up that little thing. So I was kicking myself and honestly ready to go home, but I was like, they don't know what happened. So I'm going to sit here obviously this evening. Did we even? Yeah. I sat there that evening. I don't think I seen anything except a little fawn, and which I seen her for like 3 days in a row, like just itty bitty 80-pound fawn. Like, so after that, I don't think I got full circle from what I was talking about, like on where I set up at night versus that morning. If I would have been in the tree I picked out the night before, that buck would have been 25 yards away from me.
Should have, could have, you'd have done that, and he would have came from behind you.
Exactly, and I thought about that because I was like, that tree, like he like if I wasn't careful or moved at the wrong time, he would have been coming from pretty like 20 yards just back behind me to my right. So he could have picked me off before I even was in the ball game, but also he would still be on my weak side, and like it's still all that, but yet 20, it'd just be 30 yards closer. But so I was kind of kicking myself on that. So after that happened and waiting another, I don't know, hour to get down, I moved my stand to the original tree that I should have set at. And as I was setting up, like I was 3 sticks up and I was hanging the platform, and then that little fawn walked out, and that's the first time I seen the fawn. But that thing just didn't have its wits about it yet, because I was literally like hanging my stand, pulling on it, bark was falling and all that stuff, and she was just sitting up there like looking at me like, what the heck are you doing? You're a big old squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I did that, came back, hunted it that evening, seen that fawn again, hunted it the next morning, hoping that big one would, chase that doe back down in that little draw or something along those lines. And wasn't the same buck, but a buck did funnel through.
Pretty early too, it looked like.
It
or at
was
least
very early.
Your camera's lighting, it looked like it was early.
Well, the what do you call it? The aperture, the
exposure. ISO.
Exposure. Yeah. That was stupid low. Yeah, I think, I don't know. That was really low, but it was like 650 or 55. It was plenty light. Like it usually gets daylight at 6, but that fog was rolling through and all that stuff, and so like it was just really, really dim outside. But I mean, plain as day, you could like see and look if the fog wasn't too thick. That was just the main light stopper. But my exposure was really down. I'm back in the tree, and I just look to my left. It's kind of windy, so I don't really hear much. And I see a head coming through, and I look, and I just see a rack, and I'm like, okay, not going to ask questions. I just know an antlered deer is 40 yards to the left of me now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately grab my bow, turn on the camera. I don't have my GoPro because it's back at camp, and I usually wear it on my head, and that would have helped out a lot. But I just turned the camera on, and I'm not even messing with it. Like I turn it on, make sure it's on, point it in the right direction. And like, that's as far as that went, because I watched the deer, and my wind was blowing this way, kind of down the drainage, which a bad wind for that spot kind of, but at that point, like, I don't know where they're coming from, because I had a deer come from this way. Now one's coming from this way. There was a doe coming from, that little fawn came from at the bottom. So I was like, it doesn't matter. He walks until like down the drainage until he catches my wind. He puts his head up. And when he puts his head up, I'm like, I don't think that's a shooter. Like in the back of my mind, I don't even think I told you this. I was like, damn it. Like that's kind of a smaller deer, I thought, but it was behind like a few limbs. And I was like, it's probably about to bust anyway. So what the heck's it matter? But I still have my bow in my hand, the camera on, like ready to go. Well, the thing like, it's like, okay, I smell something weird. I'm not going that way. And instead of like going back the way it came or completely away from where the smell was coming from, he kind of turns and walks basically right behind my tree at like 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's walking in, I'm like, as he's walking in, I don't know if it's the angle or what, I'm like, he's a little bit better than I thought. And I was like, redemption time. And I draw back and I'm like, it's immediately what I thought. I was, it's time. He's on my strong side. He's walking, has no clue. Like
he wants it.
He's coming. the path he's taken is like 20 yards, 25 yards, something like that. His head, like he's still walking, his head gets behind like these little 2 trees. I draw back, and as soon as I get draw back and like get in the peep sight, and he's still walking, has no clue that I even drew back. I was like, it's time. And I don't range him because I'm like, he's between 20 and 30, I think. And I don't remember if I used my 30 pin or my 20 pin, but it doesn't matter. I shot, and when I shot, like obviously he was stopped, but it looked a little back and up. And at the time I was like, I just backstrapped that deer. Mm-hmm. But mind you, I'm only probably 15 feet up, and he's a little bit below me on this hill. So I'm like hoping like the downward angle, baby, let's go with that. Well, he takes off, and I get a pass through because I see my arrow ricochet off a rock and fly into the oblivion. He takes off and directly away from me up this little finger, and he kind of starts like walking, and he gets behind like these row of trees, these row of pines where I can't really see him. And he looks to be about 50, 60 yards away. And I thought I saw him stumble, but I wasn't 100% sure just because of like some trees and limbs were in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought I seen him like bed down or something, but at the same time he moved left when he did so. And so I was like, he could have started walking. So I was like sitting there glassing both sides of these row of trees to make sure he ain't going down or any which way. And I didn't see him for like, I don't know, the whole time. 45 minutes before I like, probably not 45 minutes, but like realistically probably 10 minutes before I stopped looking in those directions, like with my binos. And as soon as I shot, I immediately got on my phone and started calling people. And I was like, I think I hit him good. I don't know, but I ran an arrow through one. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. You sent that in the group text too. Got
I
an
did.
arrow.
I was hyped about it.
Yeah. Buck got an arrow or something like that.
Well, I knew he was a 10 point, like a mainframe 10. And when he was walking in, I was like, there's a lot to work with there. Like that's what was going through my mind, because those mountain deer have like super little bodies. So like even a like a smaller rack still looks pretty darn good on those deer.
Yeah, they're impressive.
Yeah, so it did kind of fool me. Again, I would have shot this deer 100 times over regardless. Like I'm not trying to downplay the deer at all. But so I'll just continue on the story. Am I rambling on too much or no?
No.
Okay. So I wait about an hour and a half. I call basically everybody I know, and just say, hey, haha, I finally got it done. I'm not an idiot.
Shot a deer.
Yeah. And I wait about an hour and a half, and I go down there to where he was to try to find an arrow, just to kind of see like how the shot went, because I tried to check the footage to see like how, because I was just worried about the shot is all. Mm-hmm. Whether I could go look for him now, 2 hours later, or if I had to like potentially go call a dog. And I try to look back through the camera. You can't see anything on that 2-inch screen. And on top of that, the exposure was like dang near black. And I was like, well, dang, so I got down there, try to find my arrow. I was like, I ain't finding this crap. It's in tall grass. It's a black and white arrow. So you're just not finding it. I'm pretty sure I seen it fly into the oblivion like 40 yards away. So that's out. I look for blood, don't see any. And so I'm like, okay, time to back out and go back to camp, and I guess just give it a little bit more time. I don't know.
So you guys came back with a stretcher though, and where you said you thought he went down, how far was he from there?
Justin was asking me, he was like, how'd you not see him fall? Because I have it recorded on the GoPro from the time we left the truck to walking to this spot to finding the deer and starting to gut it. It was 7 minutes.
Oh, wow. So he didn't make it anywhere.
No, he made it like 40 yards, if that.
And so with the shot you thought was high and a little back, was it exactly where you thought it was?
I mean, it was a little back and a little high, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. It like, cause when I first shot, I was like, I just now backstrapped that thing. Like, I'm not finding it, but mainly kind of too, just the way the arrow went through, like absolutely just zipped through. I was like, I didn't hit a damn thing.
Well, dude, that's something I noticed with you. Like we're shooting those new VPAs broadheads. When you hit one with a super heavy arrow and there's only 18 inches of cavity and you're shooting like that, dude, it looks like it doesn't even hit them. You're like, what the frick happened? Like it's almost like it's like a dart. You're like, phew, and it just threw them. You know, when you hit them with like a mechanical and it's like, poof, you hit them and it like makes a noise, and no, it's just like, phew, and it's just gone.
Yeah. You get those babies tuned up right, because I shot a doe, I don't know, sometime in October, and it just shish kebabbed. And I was like, I should have got a pass through. The thing was like at 30 yards and it just shish kebabbed it. And I was like, what's going on? And I kind of slow moed it, and like the arrow looked like the tail end was kind of like doing that little wiggle. And I was like, yeah, that's not the way it should shoot, I don't think. And plus, when I'm just shooting in general, when we were at camp and I was shooting, I don't know, sometime when we were there, I was like, I think it's kicking. Carol was saying the same thing. And you actually pointed out, like, will you explain that little bare spot on the arrow real quick?
Yeah. So the way, I'm not an arrow manufacturer, but one of our sponsors is. So the way the arrows are made, there's like a seam in them. So imagine like a seam that runs through the arrow, and then the carbon is wrapped around the seam. So that creates a spine. So there's a consistency in the way that it bends off of that seam. And so what Exodus does is they take it's like a Sharpie, and they spine align them. So they put a Sharpie where that seam is. And so what you can do in your bow is line it up where that Sharpie mark is the same on every arrow. Yeah, you might have one to show it.
Yeah.
Jake's going to grab one out of his quiver. Yeah, but that seam is in there. And what happens is the spine and the seam, they all flex. The arrow is flexing as it's getting shot. Can you see that Sharpie mark?
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Exactly. That Sharpie mark, what that is where that seam is, and it's called spine alignment. So every single one of your arrows will have that on there. And what you want to do is shoot the arrow with that mark up every single time in the same position. Because what happens is, especially when you're shooting a 200 grain broadhead like you are, it's a lot of downward pressure on the front of the arrow. It's heavy, a lot of FOC. So when it comes out of the bow, it wants to flex real hard. And if it's on one of the weaker parts of that spine, like where you were shooting, it comes out and it flexes real hard. Right. And if it's on the stiffer part of the spine, I'm pretty sure this is how it works. When you shoot it out, it doesn't flex as hard. And so it shoots like a dart. So you went from shooting in camp, like where your arrows were wobbling and fishtailing at the end, to like shooting darts like immediately. Yeah. Just by taking it and not tuning it.
And you could tell, because from it hitting the bag, it was like a kind of like a slapping sound. And then when just by turning your knock a little bit to make where that Sharpie side's up, it was like you could definitely tell the difference. And from shooting that doe at 30 to having like the shish kebab when I'm shooting the same exact arrow setup, but just not aligned. I don't know the correct terminology, and then shooting that deer from like 25 and it absolutely going through like butter. I was like, I mean, that just made me think that like I just missed, or like missed something.
Well, in the Ashby stuff, I think factor number one for penetration is perfect arrow flight. Because you can shoot a 5,000 grain arrow, but if it hits it like this, it's not penetrating, because the energy is going sideways. You know what I mean? But if it's all going straight, all that energy can be directed into the point, and it's all applied to the point. And that shows, because you shoot a smaller doe and shish kebab it, and then you shoot a buck and you said, your arrow goes to oblivion.
It was a double lung, like through the cages, and like you couldn't tell. It was crazy. And which I'm kind of upset, because VPA said those are reusable broadheads. You just got to resharpen them. But if you can't find them after you shoot them, then they're really not reusable. So that's a good problem to have.
It's a real problem. Yeah. I've had that with like every deer I've shot this year. I'm like,
yeah,
the first buck I shot in October, I didn't find the arrow till like 2.5 weeks later. Drew found it, and I was like, "Oh, thank God!"
Wasn't it hanging up in a tree or something?
It was like laying like 30 yards away under a cedar, and he's like, "Hey, I found your arrow." I was like, "Sweet,
give it back."
So I got that sucker back, which is like $50. So that was nice. But
yeah. So just to continue on, it basically ran 30, 40 yards, and tumbled over, and I just didn't see it fall. I didn't think, or I know I did, but I just wanted to be sure. So we got that thing out of there and got it skinned out.
Took it out on the stretcher.
Yep. Took it out on the old stretcher. That thing is so cool, dude. I mean,
It's
just
nice.
just the combination Justin has, like an old ambulance turned into a camper. He called it the meat wagon, and then when he shoots a buck, he takes that out on a stretcher. Like, we need to start calling that man the butcher or something. I don't know.
Or the nurse or something like that.
Yeah,
The Merce. We can call him the Merce.
We need to think a little bit on the names, either that or you guys listen. If you guys got any funny names like that, hit us up.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys took it out. I mean, that's the first buck you had shot in. You didn't shoot one last season.
Saturday.
And, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's the first one you shot in this. I mean, you didn't get one last season. So what were like, you walk up on it? Are you like, monkey off my back? I feel good. I'm glad I shot this deer. What did you feel like?
I mean, obviously it's stupid to say, like, you know, I know you're not supposed to have pressure to shoot a deer, but damn it, I had an itchy trigger finger for something.
You spend a lot of time and energy and effort. It's
100%.
like, if I played basketball for 4 hours a week and I never scored, I'd be like, damn, dude, I just want to put the ball in the damn hoop every once in a while. And it's the same thing with the deer. If you go duck hunting, eventually you're going to want to shoot one of them. Like, that's how it goes. So,
I mean, yeah, it was like going on a dry spell, because like last season, the opportunity wasn't the issue. It was just the actual execution, because we went to Kansas last year. I had one encounter with like a mid 120s 8-point that I should have shot, but I elected to pass, and that was a mistake. And then on down that season, for like, at least for Kansas, you had like other encounters, but they just never worked out. And then, you know, in Oklahoma, at the same exact place, not the same exact stand, but the same exact piece of public, I shot over the back of that one where I was going to hunt on the second day in the horseshoe. That same spot, I shot at a buck. And again, it was day 6 or 7. It was the very last day. And I was just in shambles like one morning, and I just couldn't keep it together. And then going back to private, I missed my dude. Just sometimes you have those years where like nothing could go wrong. Like literally, if you even like look at a trail cam picture of a deer, you're probably like, that deer's already dead. It's just waiting on you to run the arrow through it. And then some years you just can't do anything. And like last year was that year where I couldn't do anything right. Like I made a decision to pass. That was the wrong decision. I make a decision to shoot one on public, and my number one hit lister on private, that was like 150-inch deer. I go to shoot it with a rifle, and my scope was like all messed up, because after I shot, I was like, why? How did I miss? My whole, like, my scope housing was loose, and so I could basically turn the scope in my hand, and I was like, nothing can go right. So obviously I didn't hit my hit lister on private. So like, I could have tagged out last year, but like I came home empty-handed. And I told you this before, I hunted more last year than I think I ever have in my whole life, like in one season. And I didn't even shoot a doe. And like that was just part of it.
right.
And then going on to this year, like, yeah, I get a small doe. And then, you know, I've been struggling to see anything good with antlers. Like, still haven't found my hit lister on private yet. And then I go and miss, could potentially be my biggest deer or my second biggest deer of my life just the day before. And then after, it feels like playing basketball and you're like trying to shoot from half court, and then finally something gives you an actual easy layup. You're like, thank God, thank you, God. And I mean, that's kind of the way it panned out.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. So the rest of the trip, you guys ended up going you went Sunday to Sunday, so you ended up hunting for 7 straight days. Jordan shoots a buck, his first buck down there where we were hunting on the public. He shot, he's massacred the does. Yeah, he shot that the same day you did, right? No,
I shot mine Saturday morning. He shot his Friday.
Oh, okay. So he had shot one, Friday.
Yeah,
you shot that one Saturday. Jordan has massacred the does down there, but he finally got his first buck down there. And then everybody kind of packs up and goes home, huh? Nobody ends up no more big encounters, nothing like that.
I mean, no. The next morning, I set the same spot, and then Carol sits like 150 yards away from me because Carol's on an even worse struggle bus than I am. Like, at least I was having encounters at this point, and Carol just wasn't like, it just wasn't in the chips for him this year. And
so he says.
Yeah, so he says. But I told him just kind of trickle off the same little ridge that I'm on, and maybe. I mean, we know there's deer in the area, and then that next morning I seen like I don't know, probably the same size as the first one I shot in 2020, like just a nice little 8-point. And then I don't know if we hunted that evening or not. I don't think we did. I think we headed home after that.
So, Rutcation success, although it's not the megalodon that you saw on Friday, you still put a buck down on public land with a bow. Jordan put one down. Mason put one down. I'd say overall, all in all, it's a pretty successful trip.
You can't. I don't.
3 out of 4 people shot bucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
3 out of 4 people shot bucks. There was size on 2 of those that you guys shot at. So I think it was pretty good overall. Like from the outside looking in, as someone who didn't get to hunt, it looks like everybody had a pretty good week besides Carol, who didn't see very much at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, I'm ready to go back now, but here it is, November 29th. And, I don't know. I'm planning on going back. I'm wanting to go this weekend, but Abby's trying to make me stay home and watch the Big 12 championship at her parents' house.
Oh, there you go.
Because, Oklahoma State's finally in it somehow, some way. But if I don't go this weekend, I'm going to try to go like sometime this upcoming week. I don't want to give exact dates because I don't like really doing that like online and stuff. But I'll tell you off pod.
Okay. Yeah. Talk about the you wrote a note over here in the comments.
Oh yeah. So this is actually pretty funny, and I don't remember you guys' names, and so if you're listening to this, I do apologize for if I didn't seem too pleasant with the encounter, because I pulled up to the gas station. Me and Carol did before we headed out, and I pull up to a pump, and there's a guy with a trailer and there's two guys in a truck with a trailer with a side by side on the back of it, and I don't think of anything. I just go to get out to pump the gas, and there's these 2 kids, probably about our age, like looking over at me, and I'm thinking like did they do something wrong? And kind of, hey, and they roll down the window and they're like, "Did you get anything?" And at this point, my bed is loaded down with the wall tent, and like,
oh yeah,
I have ice chest on ice chest, and what I do is like, because I just have the head of my buck, I just have it wedged in the very back of my bed, and it's laying on the wall tent, like wedged in the corner, and all you can see is tine sticking out. So they probably thought it was like a monster.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Any luck?" And at this point, like, I don't think anything of it, and I'm just like, "No, not really." And I kind of just give them a smirk because like I assume they seen the tines, maybe not. And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "We listened to you guys on the podcast."
Oh, really?
And at this point, I'm like shooketh. I tried telling you this on the way home, but you didn't answer my call. I think you were sleeping or something. But either that or I don't know what you're doing. But I did try to call you about it. And he was like, "Yeah, we listened to you guys on the podcast." And I was like, "Well, I'm sorry." And I kind of go up there, and they actually live there. They live probably. So do you know that more cleaner road you can take? That's not that little bridge.
Yeah.
Down that road, I think that's where they said they lived, or at least one of them lived.
And they're not letting us stay? What the frick?
That's exactly what I said, which again, I was joking, but I was like, well, heck yeah, you just tell me exactly where. And I said, we won't have to bring this Walton each time we come down here. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know how they took that, but I took it as a joke, and I thought it was funny. But long story short, like afterwards, because like I wasn't like super, super talkative, he showed me a picture of a buck that he shot like opening weekend of October, I think, and it was an absolute stud. Like I still remember it. Like it had great eye guards, and I was like, "Dad gum," and I told him, I was like, "You're doing better than a lot of people," and I said it again. I said, "You're doing better than a lot of people," like kind of talking about myself. And I wanted to do this podcast a lot quicker because I was like, it was all a blur basically. Because I was like, I'm very tired, and I just want you to know that if I seemed rude, I was at 2% brain capacity. So I apologize to you guys if I came off that way. I was really not trying to be.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So you met a podcast.
Super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You need to DM us and exactly tell us where you live, because we will gladly stay there.
Stay in your freaking garage. I don't care.
Yeah.
No, that's funny.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we met down by, we were taking a shower at just a public place, and I was talking to some guys, as you guys, there's obviously limited showers. So I was talking to some guys, like, there's some guys in there. I was like,
you didn't just join them mid shower?
No, you guys are taking a shower, and they were like, is there people in there? I said, yeah, they're in there. And they were like, having any luck? And I was like, this is like Tuesday. So legitimately nobody's seen anything.
Hell
I'm like, no. And I could say that. Usually I'd lie to you, but I'm not lying to you at this moment. Like, I actually, so I can say
saying it with a sincere heart.
Yeah. I'm like, absolutely not. No. And they're like, oh, yeah, we shot 3. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you shot 3?
And the guy
3, he goes, no, we shot 3. We shot 3 this morning. And I'm like, okay, let me see these freaking dinks that you shot. And he pulls out his phone. And the first one, I mean, that's what you think when somebody says they shoot 3. You're like, yeah, there's no way. I'm a skeptic. So he pulls out the first one's like 110. I'm like, nice. Like, first of all, it's bigger than anything I thought you were going to show. And then the next one's like probably 130. I'm like, damn, nice. And then he pulls out, he goes, this is the one I got. And it's like probably 140. I'm like, damn. I was like, y'all did pretty good.
Y'all got a lease here or what?
No, they shot them all in public. And the guy I was talking to, he said, I said, yeah, this is the one I got with my recurve, because I had my recurve buck in the truck still, but I had the big, the 7x5 I had back at camp. And I said, yeah, that's the one I shot with my recurve. And, he's like 127, 126, and handed it to him. He goes, oh, I know, we follow you. And I was like, huh? And he's like, he said, yeah, we're subscribed to the YouTube. He goes, I thought you looked, he said,
I didn't know this part.
He said, I thought you looked familiar. And I was like, oh, nice. I was like, well, it's nice to meet you guys. And so I met those guys out there, and I was like, cool. But yeah, they had shot 3 nice bucks that morning. So I was like, we hadn't been seeing it a year. They had shot 3 bucks. I'm like, dang, we're doing something wrong. But no, like, it's funny you say that, because yeah, I met two or three more guys that were the exact same way. But every guy that I've met that ever said that is really nice.
Oh yeah, they were super nice. But like, to me, still, like, it's like, I'm not saying we have this every freaking day of our lives.
It doesn't happen every day, trust me.
No, it doesn't. But like, when it does happen, it's like you're almost kind of like thrown off, or at least I am, where I'm like, I don't even know what to say right now, because I'm just that surprised that you actually listen or watch. Like, that's I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
It's always very nice. And it's nice to connect to people that you're like, okay, somebody actually watched this video and I know who one of them was, or a couple of them was. So it's always nice. And if anybody listening ever sees us in person, it might not be us because we're 2 average looking white males, but feel free to
one better looking than the other.
Yeah. Feel free to come say what's up. But no, that's good. It was so just wrapping it up with a bow on it, like, what would you take away from the rut creation besides the saddle situation? What is something you would do different? Like, whether it's a tactic, an area, or a time, or weather front, like, what are you going to do different going forward because of this week that you hunted in November?
I mean, kind of basically what's already just been said. Like, instead of going down for our rutcation on a certain time and a certain date, check the weather. Okay, is there a change in weather that's going to be happening within like this time period where we could go and like hunt the best of the best, where, like, kind of like you said before, where we're not burnt out when you really need to be at your best. And also, like, the second one was still, just to reiterate it, make the shot the right way or not at all, because more than likely, if you don't make it the right way, there's a better chance of it not working out, just as much as you not even taking a shot. So
I think those are good. I would reiterate the first one from an outsider looking in, somebody who didn't hunt very much. That was exactly what I was thinking. Was it's going to turn on, it's going to turn on, it's going to turn on. But it sucks when you're like, hammering. You're like, all right, I'm on E, and it just turned on, you know? And that's just not sometimes, I mean, a lot of people have to take their vacation in advance and they don't have, but we don't. That's not our situation.
But I will say this, would I be in like on that finger if I had a full gas tank when it first turned on? Absolutely not.
Why is that? You've been somewhere else?
I mean, I was looking for somewhere close and like I didn't have a whole lot of fight left in me, if I'm being honest. And so like just saying that, like, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to loop it back to like whatever that scripture is. I'm horrible with like naming scripture, but you know, you can make your plans, but God determines your steps. And it's like, okay, that's what we had planned.
That one right there. That's Proverbs 16:9, son. I got that tatted on me.
Well, you see, you have to put it on your body to actually learn it, and I can just memorize it. So that's crazy.
Yeah, you didn't say it right either.
But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Like to think about like how it could have worked out differently. Oh, if I would have been like at my best, I would have made a good shot on the buck. Chances are I wouldn't even been in that same area as that buck. So like, it's just crazy the way things are like work out. And I mean, I guess it's just more comfort knowing that like, if something is planned to work out, it will work out. And like, if it doesn't, it just wasn't in your favor.
Well, and there's another one that's Proverbs 16, but I think it's in 15. It might have even been earlier, 16. It says, we throw the dice, but God determines how they fall. So there's only one side of that equation that you can control. And it's like, you do what you can with what you have at that moment. If you got terrible weather and it's your vacation and it's the only time you can take it, you better take it. You know, if you traveled, you better go and hunt, because don't sit on the sidelines. Like you do what you can with what you have. And that's exactly what I think you guys did. And it would have been really easy after you missed that buck to be like, I'm going home. You know, Carol wouldn't argue with you.
I was loading up. Hold on, I didn't tell you this story. I don't think I told you this story. Or heck, maybe you were still there. But
I think I was there. But go ahead.
Were you? Okay, so you left Friday, so it had to be like Thursday evening or Thursday morning, or heck, it could even been Friday morning when it started raining. So yeah, it was Thursday morning. Carol said he got back to the tent before everybody because it started raining. And he said he just immediately loaded up all of his stuff. And he said the only thing that kept me from leaving was the rain. He didn't want to like load all of his stuff up in the rain or something like that.
Yeah.
And like he had his stuff packed and like he was about to go.
Well, he said he texted me and it's like 8:30. Me and Mason just now got a buck in the truck, and I get a text that says, "Hey, I'm leaving. Is there anything you need me to do?" And I'm like, he's joking. You know, he just like is raining. And I get back and he's in his mummy's sleeping bag with it over his head. I'm like, I thought you were leaving. He goes, I swear to God, if it wouldn't have been raining, I'd been gone. And I said, are you serious? You're being for real? And he goes, I promise. And because I remember you trying to convince him I was going to take the wall tent home if you guys were going to leave. And I was like, I just need to know, because Friday morning I'm waking up and I'm leaving regardless. And I'm, so you're like, are you staying? He's like, you had like a 30-minute conversation about him staying. And he's like, dude, I don't care. I'll go home right now. I'll go duck hunting right now.
Well, I just wanted to know, because like I was wanting to at least stay until Saturday, because like I wanted to at least stay until Saturday. Like I'm already down here. Like obviously it's just now starting to get good. Mason just now shot a really good one. So like things are looking up. But the thing is like, I'm not going to be the only one to stay in this wall tent. If I'm the only one here, I'm going to sleep in my truck, or there were some other people that we knew down there that, I'd see if I can bum a floor space, in their camper or something like that. And, I just didn't want to be in that scenario where it's like, okay, now I have to take down this whole wall tent by myself.
Right. 100%. I mean, I don't know if you have many good qualities about you. No, I'm just kidding. But I think one of the ones that I like and I think is good for hunting, especially in a group, is when things suck. I think you have a really good maybe not a good attitude, but you have a good drive to be like, I want to get it done. Like even more, like it's day 6, we have till day 7, keep going. Cause I think even me, there's a lot of times where if things don't go well, people do want to pack it up. And if you make a decision, you're going to try to do it. And I think that's why you killed that deer, is because you're like, I shot a deer, missed a deer. It sucks. It'd be easy to put it up and go home. But you're like, no, I'm going to go back. I'm going to try it again. And then I'm going to try it again. And when I have to go home, I'll go home. But you didn't do that. And I think there's a lot of situations, and especially going forward, that on day 5, 6, 7, 8, those are going to be the days that you seal it in and kill one.
I appreciate your kind words, but it's mainly just I know myself from like previous years where even if we do stay the whole time, as soon as I get a good night's sleep and a good shower, it's like I'm already, and if I don't punch a tag or anything, then I'm like, I need to be back there. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just like, I'm an idiot. Maybe if I tried this spot, I would have worked out, but now I need to go try this spot to see if it's any good. And I don't know. I think it's a more of like a mentally challenged thing rather than actually like it's a good trait.
It's almost like I think it's almost a maturing, because previously it's like when you get in those situations, it's like the only thing you can think about is not being in that situation at the current moment. But as you get older and older and you see it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, you're just like, hey, I'm going to get home and I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to wake up fine and I'm going to drink the coffee the next morning. That's coming. But where am I right the frick now? So being where my feet are, because I've had a bad thing of like, I'm hunting here, but I could go somewhere else. I could go home for a couple of days and then go over here. And it's like, no, I'm right here, right the frick now. Why am I trying to escape where I'm at right now? And if you stick in there and you just do what you're supposed to do with where you're at, it ends up working out, especially in that situation. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it will. I think it will continue to work out because, like, dude, my private has just been, oh my God. Like, that's because that's what I want to do. Like I want to kill. I mean, going forward, I guess depending on where I hunt, like if I don't get on the lease next year, I am going to probably try to kill, like have a plan to get 2 on public, just because like I got nephews, they're getting older, and like one's already kind of starting to get interested into it, where I'm like, we have some land to hunt around my house, but it's like one of those ordeals where it's like, I'm not going to ruin this kid's, hunt. Like, would I ever? No, but they're going to want to shoot spikes. They're going to want to explore, as they should be able to, and like mess up deer, find new spots, and like just explore. And I'm not going to be the bad uncle. It's a bit like so serious about it, where I'm like, especially if I don't even own the land. And so I just need to. I'm trying to take a step away from that. And also, there's not even anything that floats my boat on any of them. So I don't know. That's what I want to do. I want to get 1 on private this year. I'd like to, and then 1 on public, but it seems like I'm going to have to go back to that spot, and which I'm completely fine with. Cause like we talked about earlier, like my trigger finger's kind of at bay as of right now. And, now I just want one that's like super special. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm super happy, super proud of the deer I shot. I wouldn't take it back whatsoever. But like realistically, I know you haven't seen it in person, but it's like maybe it's a 10 point. So if it was an 8 point, probably maybe 100 inches, if that. But I mean, it has 2 extra points. So I'm thinking anywhere from like 110 to like maybe 115. I don't know. I haven't scored it, but I want something like super special.
Yeah, I think that can happen. And the pressure cooker, like if you have a good piece of private, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, I don't need to shoot. Like I can go out and I can even be not picky, but I can wait for something even specialer on public too. Like,
see, that's where I want to be though. That's where I want to be, because where we hunt, like there's like, we talked about it all the time about, I don't even want to say this on the podcast. Different regions of the state have different like antler potential and antler like ceiling heights.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm sure that's not just like specific to Oklahoma. I'm sure each state is like that. But I mean, around Northeast, I mean, there could be. I mean, I'm just going to say it. That's probably the best antler potential in Oklahoma is Northeast
or Northwest. One of the two.
Yes,
one of the two.
Probably.
Yeah. The northern region of the state, I believe, is the antler potential is.
Are you talking about like up by Jesse?
I mean, like, yeah, like Panhandle, where you see a lot of the Buck Ventures guys, like, 10 minutes from Kansas. I just think the deer have more nutrition and they get bigger. Like a 5-year-old versus a 5-year-old. Like I'm saying, like a 5-year-old from the south, a 5-year-old from the north. I'm going to give my chips to the northern one if they're the same age. The issue is, like you're saying, is the age quality of in the Northeast. It's not the antler potential. The ceiling is very high.
Yeah. So that's, I kind of forget where I was going, but basically, yeah.
Different regions have different antler potential.
From what I'm wanting to accomplish, I don't need to be around here for the access I have.
Well, we're going to do a full different podcast about that, I'm sure, but being realistic about what you have, like what is going to be around, is very important.
I kind of want to talk about it right now, or just like add it on, a little snippet of it. But so just to kind of put the way my private lays out, like, have there been good bucks killed off of it? Yes. Are there great bucks killed around where I live? Absolutely. Like I had a picture of what did his deer ended up scoring? The one with the kickers. I don't want to say any names on here. 172,
low 170s, low 170s.
Yeah, it was like 172. Is crazy. I had him one time at like midnight, but again, I knew he was a cool buck. Like he had flyers and stuff, but it was like, you don't see those deer at all. Like I've been hunting this property for 7 years probably, and that's the biggest deer I've ever seen, and it was 172. Don't get me wrong, but the second biggest I've ever seen is the one I seen last year on the hoof. That was 150.
Right, and
after that, significantly lower. Like you're if you see a 130, you're doing something, and a 120, it's like that. It happens ever so often.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, it's like, is there good bucks? But yes, but you're not going to be able to get, just door knock and get permission around here, because everybody and their dog hunts around here. Everybody. And leasing, like if I'm going to lease somewhere, it ain't going to be here, because I know I can probably lease elsewhere that has a little bit better management structure and age structure. And, so basically a better bang for my buck. And so like around here, unless I go to public, is kind of like out of the question. The property to the south of me is bordered by other people that don't really hunt and have significant amount of timber. And then the property, yes. And the property to the north of me, it gets absolutely ran through. There's coon hunters on it. I had a coon hunter on my camera last night, getting his dog, and it was dead in the middle of the property. And so like where my land is set up is like not very good. If the only time you're able to really make something happen is usually like November 20s, somewhere around there. And that's only because like the deer from the south are, I don't know, maybe they got their butt kicked and are looking for another hot doe elsewhere. And it's just like a little transition area from them going south to north. But now that the north has kind of like really been used and abused, it seems like they're not really transitioning through. And I haven't got pictures of hardly anything, but that just goes to show like you can be in a good area, but if your specific piece isn't clicking, there's really not much you can do if you don't own the land to like really make something happen, because there's not a whole lot of timber. There's not bedding. It's basically a pecan orchard, and the fields are mowed, and granted it has a creek running through it, but again, very few timber, like probably 50 yards at some point until you run into the creek of like little nuggets of timber. But I don't know what I'm trying to say. You can be in a good area, but if your land isn't like really good, where you can't like adapt it and like, or manage it where you can put cover on it or put food or whatever it is, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. And like, you can hunt as much as you want, do the right things, like, play the wind, put up cell cams and feeders where you limit, intrusion in there. And if a big buck's not in there, you're not going to kill the big buck.
No. And you have to, another interesting part of it is you have to be realistic about what's big for where I'm at. Like, our buddy in western portion of the state has a lot of acres, thousands of acres, and they don't have many deer over 150 inches. So they're like realistic. Like, we want to kill big deer. I want to shoot. My goal is like I want to shoot like a 150 every year, and every few years I'd love to shoot like a 160s. But you got to be realistic about not only where you hunt, but what is around the areas that I hunt. That's a lot of the reason we go hunt public and other places like Kansas and stuff is the trophy potential goes way up.
It has a higher ceiling.
The ceiling, right. And also we're trying to go from this area of like when you hunt a big one, let's say a 160 plus, is that an anomaly in the terms of is it one every 1,000 or is it one every 100? You know, like I want to be in the areas where it's not abnormal. Like if you shot a 160, like they'd be like, oh yeah, there's not many of them, but there's some of those around. Where the places where we hunt, it's like you shoot a 160, it's like that might be the one around. You know, there might not be more than
it
one.
is.
You know,
it is.
I know it is.
So what would you so the Midwest states compared to like Oklahoma, what would you range like? Okay, so would you range like a 160 from Kansas being like maybe a 135, 140 in Oklahoma?
I think the more north you go, the more that scale kind of widens. But like, I think I've heard anywhere from like 10 to 15 inches bigger on average. So like a 135 here could be a 150 in an Iowa or an Illinois or a northern Kansas or a Nebraska, just because, you know, it's not genetics. They all have those. I mean, it might be somewhat genetics, but it's nutrition and it's age. Like you can't get the age on them in a lot of places where you hunt. Our issue where we have our leases is we get the age, but they do not have the nutrition. They don't have like, or they don't have the water. That's another.
Yeah, but say I don't think it's a nutrition thing. I think it just all has to do with water. If
well, and the water affects the quality of the browse.
Right.
Everything else goes off that water, and it affects the fetal programming aspect of it too. If you live in a drought, you're not going to prioritize antlers, you know. And if the last 30 years, if 20 of them have been a drought, the does are like, no, it's not big antler season, you know. So
yeah, I'm not saying we're after 200s. Like, don't get me wrong, that'd be cool. But I was listening to a podcast today, and this guy was explaining like what it actually takes to grow. Let's say you have land, what it actually takes to grow a 200. He said that's like a 1 in 1 million type deer. You know, a 200-inch deer is just because, you know, the mom has to be healthy, the dad has to be healthy, and also have great genetics, and the environment has to be right. Like there can't be like really any major stressors. Like the food has to be right. And when I mean environment, I mean like hopefully it doesn't get hit by a car. Hopefully the coyotes and the predation rate is like pretty low, and it has to survive all these things. And I mean, basically age and the health of the parents and like the potential of the parents too. Like that's a crazy combo for the deer to like make it at least 5.5 and then have everything else go right. Like that's insane.
Well, and it doesn't happen very often. But when you look at if you're looking like for us, let's say you're looking for a 150 plus, 90% of the deer that we're hunting are not, like, especially where you're at, are not going to get to the age to even be able to express that kind of antler. Like the average deer is getting killed, I would say 2.5 or 3.
2.5, 100%. 100%.
The only reason I say even 3 is part of that is 3 was when they start looking pretty freaking good, where you're like, ooh, you know, like 120s, 130s, like most deer aren't getting that kind of age. And then on the flip side of that, where me and Carol get to hunt on private quite a bit, the deer get the age, but they just do not have the resources they need to get that big. I mean, and for the most part, you know, there's always anomalies, but so you have to ask yourself, for us, it's like, okay, all the effort you put in, let's just say the tens of thousands of hours that we put in hunting in the South. How many bucks have you seen on the hoof over 170? While hunting. While hunting.
Oh, while hunting, none.
Okay. Me either. Have you ever seen one glassing a field?
No.
Have you ever seen one driving around?
No.
You've seen one walking around.
Yes.
Right?
You have.
I've seen one walking around. Okay. There's a guy that will drive in the Midwest one time this year that will see multiple of those in one field. in one field. There will be a field.
See, I can't even like fathom that.
But when you limit, like you think that's why it's relative, right? Where we're hunting, we have, in my mind, have been relatively successful. And inches aren't everything. I'm just saying relatively successful based on what we're hunting. We're not hunting 160 every year. There is not one to hunt every year. There's not one to hunt every 3 years. You know what I mean? The two that has been killed, you've killed one and Justin has killed one. There's been between those two, there's been a lot of effort expended. And what I'm saying is going forward, I think I'm going to try to reapply some of my effort where the bucks that I'm after aren't anomalies. Like they're there. They might not be there in numbers, but they might, but you know what I mean?
No, trust me, I'm right there with you because we've had several phone calls about this, about how like, do I have private to hunt? Yeah. And I mean, heck, I even have many open fields to hunt, like on this private, like where I can see a good ways. And I did it where I've sat on fence lines and looked with a rifle, because it's rifle season right now in Oklahoma. Nothing, dude. Like you'll see an average like 120 walk out. But other than that, dude, you can see the whole, damn near the whole property on this. Like that's a pretty good, you would think from a human perspective, a pretty good little hunting piece. I mean, it's basically a pecan orchard. It butts up next to a creek. It has timber on the majority of the sides where it could come from. Now, granted, the neighbors aren't the best, or at least the north neighbors aren't the best. And, you know, you're still not going to get good deer on there. And if you sit there, how many hours on average does a person hunt, you know, a day? Like if they hunt morning and evening, 3-4 hours a sit, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say 6-7 hours, probably 3.5, 4 hours a sit at least. So 7. Yeah. Let's just say 7.
So out of that 7 hours that day, and if you know you're going in and not really seeing anything, but hey, it's November, anything could happen. Like, yeah, there's that hope, but the majority of the sits, like for me at least on private, it's not fruitful whatsoever. And so I'm at the point now where I will trade a sit on my private piece, which would, you know, a full day would be 7 hours. Well, for me, that gets me pretty darn close. I don't want to be exact on any numbers or anything, but like that's a round trip for me to get where I have a higher ceiling and a higher potential to see actually a deer I want to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So now, granted, it costs me a little bit of gas money. Maybe it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable to, like, you know, a sleeping situation. But other than that, it's like to me, a time and effort, like basis, I'm going to be more fruitful. I feel, you know, instead of wasting the 7 hours, sitting in a blind, I'll have that 7 hour round trip.
And that's what you have to do. And I think going forward, I'm going to take that even to a further extent of like, okay, if there's a great cold front in the Midwest, I'm going to go try to hunt public in Missouri or Kansas or Ohio or Illinois, because it's not that like, and you're going to see somebody and people that listen to this podcast are going to say, there's 200-inch deer in Oklahoma. Absolutely there are.
Yeah.
Not many. I've never seen one. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of trail cameras out, and it's just,
dude, especially the amount of time we've had, like we have 25 cameras. We ran them like 3 years in a row. And how many hours, how many months those cameras have sit there on some of our better public too.
Fantastic.
Like, yeah. A lot of time has gone into that, and a lot of different area, a lot of miles. And not 1-200.
Well, not many over 170.
Yeah,
maybe one.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it that way, and it's like, I have always wondered that same thing too. When I see people that have fantastic access in Oklahoma, like Jesse. Let's use Jesse's example. Jesse has close to 10,000 acres he can hunt. Jesse had to get a lease in Kansas. And guess what he does? He gets a lease in Kansas. The first year he shoots a 185. Jesse has hunted in Oklahoma his entire life. And his biggest one is like a 164, which is a stud. Absolutely. That's a giant. But Jesse's looking for those 170 class bucks. He ain't
getting any 170s over at his 10,000 acres?
Not many.
Really?
Not many. No, not many. Not many. I mean, people might be listening and like, you're so spoiled. This is ridiculous. No, I'm just telling you where we're at as far as wanting to chase big ones. So No, not many. And he goes to Kansas, and a guy shoots one in velvet off the lease, which is like 175. And then Jesse goes back in November and shoots a 185 on like a 400 acre lease. So you look at it like that. Now the lease might have cost, let's just say the lease costs 5 figures. I don't know what it costs. 5 figures. How much time do we have into other stuff like that? Like time, energy, effort, gas, all that stuff. It's a lot, It's a lot of. Now, I enjoy the chase. I will always hunt public, no doubt. Right. I'm not saying like, I need to get a lease in the Midwest. No, absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. I can't afford to drive up there and have a place to hunt. Yeah, both. But I can't afford to drive up there. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, we're in the golden age of deer hunting. We're in the golden age of management. Go make some hay while the sun shines on some places where those deer that you're after are more frequent, where they're a little bit more attainable. Yeah. A little bit more attainable. Because we went to Kansas, and it's like we went to Kansas, and
the very first buck I've seen was
140. Like 140s. Yeah. And I was like, I love Kansas. Sitting in a bean field.
Seen 20 deer, and one of them was a 140. Like, this is pretty cool.
This is awesome. Yeah. And I'm driving around a cut Milo field in November, and I look over and there's 100 mid 160s out in this field. And I'm like, dude, that is a monster. You're driving, you see in a 150s off the road. And there are those places that exist. And if that is your goal, that might not be everybody's goal, but my goal is, I know children are coming. I know things are coming. I know obligations are getting more and more, and time is dwindling lower and lower. So in the golden age of deer hunting and the golden age of being a late 20s, dual income, no kids kind of person, I want to make some hay. And there's some hay still to be made out there on public. So that's what I want to do, because and if we have leases and we have private and we have public, we can hunt in Oklahoma. That's always going to be there, and we can always go do it.
That's exactly why. Like I want a better piece of I want a better piece of private. I know from the outside looking in, like it's like, oh yeah, no wonder you guys hunt public, because it must be nice to go back and hunt private. Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. 100% what I want to do. But not only that, it just because, and I feel you're on the same boat. You just figured this out quicker than I did. I want to be able to go to a place where, yes, I feel I would have a very good success rate of killing a good buck, to give me the opportunity that the first 120 I see on public, that I will feel safe and comfortable to pass, which will in return help me in the long run of potential killing a bigger buck, because I feel like that lease is, we've already talked about this. The lease has a lower score potential than where we hunt on public.
It does. The ceiling. Yeah.
So in return, like it's actually helping like my potential to reach like even higher if I pass those 120s, and I'm comfortable passing those 120s, because I'll have a good mindset. Seeing a deer will reassure, but I still have that mindset of like, okay, I'm here for something bigger, because I know I can shoot that elsewhere.
100%. That's exactly what it is. And there's another side of it that is, I want to sharpen my sword. I want to be a better deer hunter, and you can only be so good at deer hunting the same topography time and time and time and time again. And like going to Kansas last year was legit a breath of fresh air. I'm like, well, I talk a lot of crap on the podcast. I talked a lot of crap on the podcast about like, oh, it's a bean field and finding a bedding area. Was it right? Yeah. Did I pass some deer I shouldn't have? Absolutely. Like I could have come out with one a lot bigger. So could you have. But I like hunting that Midwestern stuff. I want to go to Missouri and hunt different stuff. I want to go to Ohio and hunt some of the hills. I want to go hunt a swamp in Wisconsin. And the thing is, I won't ever do that if I'm just focused only on what I have here, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just want to spread my time more evenly to other places, because I want to, in 5 years, be like, nope, I hunted Wisconsin. I tried that. I suck at hunting the swamps. I went and hunted Ohio. That worked out, because it's similar to what I hunted back at home. I want to do those things and just get better and better and better, because that's just the progression of deer hunting, is wanting to be better at it. And you can only do that so much where you are. And it might actually go learn something and come back to where you're from and be like, I don't know how I never saw this, but this is what I saw there. That's a good and be point. Like, I'm better now hunting this because I know how this works, And that's what I want to do, which in the last 5 years, or since this podcast has existed, you guys have listened to the progression of literally learning how to hit a bag target at 20 yards to actually killing some deer. So it's taken a while, but I'm finally at that point where I'm like, I want to try some stuff and have some fun and go do that and sling arrows.
Either that or they just probably think we're regressing and like turning into madmen. Either way.
Either way, you're still here and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about it. This season is not over. I'm not counting it off.
Oh heck no.
I'd like to. I was telling you, you still got one to kill. I'd like Peyton to get in it. Get
I'm
up there
trying.
one more time. Well,
I'm trying.
The only reason I say that is because we're gonna find his buck in the spring that he shot, and so I'm like, it would be really nice if he went out there and got one more, and then would get that treat when we go shed hunting. So, yeah, I'm excited, but there's still I was telling you that Kobe quote, job's not finished.
Yeah,
it's not
that's
finished.
Pretty hard. Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up the rutcation. 3 deer in 7 days on public land.
And Jordan shot a doe too, so it's 4, right? $3. $3. Yeah, $3 and 4 does. Or sorry, $3 and 1 doe. 4 deer.
$3, 4 does, yeah.
Yeah.
But
no, that was a really good trip. Hopefully next year.
Next year you say you're gonna have a tag because you're gonna give me your lease.
Yeah, I am gonna do that. 100%.
That way you limit yourself to one on private and then that way you can have a higher ceiling potential.
Well, and it's less about
Oklahoma.
It's less about the private thing, and it's more about I want to chase a certain caliber, and I know the ceiling is potential there isn't as high as other places. So like I'm trying to go hunt another caliber, which ends up being on public. So yeah,
we got a good start. We're gonna have a good start for next year for Oklahoma Public. I guarantee it.
I hope so.
I don't guarantee it, but pretty close.
I don't guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Yeah, boy. But yeah, but just to wrap up the whole like spiel of what we just did about the higher selling potential and all that stuff. I know the season ain't over, so we really don't have to touch on this, but I plan on going to Kansas next year. I know you plan on going to Kansas next year. So where do you think that leaves us for like Oklahoma next year? Because if we draw out, I mean, I'm going to want to spend most of October and honestly like a few times in November up there.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of one of the fun parts of it is you never know what's going to happen. Like, when I went to the rutcation this year and didn't have a tag, I was like, wasn't planning on this. Like, wasn't planning on not having a tag. Right. But I shot the biggest buck I've ever shot on October 30th. And I was like, well, I told you before, though. I said, I'm going into the lease and there's only 1 deer I'm going to shoot. That deer showed up. And so I shot him. I'm like, well, I wasn't really planning on this. And so I don't know. Similar to what we talked about earlier, I think I'm going to hunt weather. Like if Kansas has a good front and Oklahoma doesn't,
that's a good point.
That's going to be because I feel like you can kind of sit and meander on those decisions forever in your own mind. Like, well, this happened, but
that's just what I do though. I overthink a lot,
but if Kansas has a good wind and I have a good spot and there's a good front, I'll go hunt that. And if I have a monster in Oklahoma, I'm in a good front, I'm going to go hunt that. Like, so that's probably how I would make those decisions. And then Lord willing, like this year, I still have a Nebraska tag this year. Am I going to be able to get to Nebraska before December 31st? Probably not, but damn, I'm thinking about it. I'd love
more
to.
Conversations. You might be filling up the old truck.
Man, it's hard not to. I mean,
you've had a banger year.
You talked about those. Yeah. You talked about that earlier. I mean, dude, I was thinking about the other day. I was thinking about first sits because everybody always talks about first sits. Like, your first sit's your best spot to kill one. And I thought about it. October 1st, I went in. I shot a buck on my first sit. The recurve draw hunt, I sat down. I shot a buck on my first sit. The buck I shot, my biggest one, that was my first sit in there on that hunt. I go to Texas. That was my first sit that evening in Texas. I shot 4 deer on the first sit. Not that I didn't hunt more days,
than that. But every time I killed one, it was on the first sit of the hunt. And so I have had like anything I've touched has turned to gold this year. And so I'm like, hey, dude, what can I turn?
All I need is one sit, theoretically.
Theoretically, I'm thinking about Nebraska, and I'm like, what's to say there's not a 180-inch swamp donkey that wants to die there one day? Like,
I mean, you have a really good mojo going. I would recommend you go. It's easier said than done. I know. But
I want to go
just,
so bad.
Man, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas.
Yeah, only thing missing out of that would be Kansas, and Kansas didn't let me in this year. Which,
well,
the Whitetail Mission, yeah, next year either. But the Whitetail Mission guys, Trey and Connor, they were like, dude, deer better be scared if they're around you. And then they go up there and Trey shoots like a monster 8-point. And I was like, they've drawn in 3 years in a row, and Trey shot 3 bucks in a row, and Connor shot 2 in a row.
Do they all stay in that same unit or no?
I think so. But and Trey the last 2 years have shot 2 really good ones. And I was just sitting there like, they were saying that about me. I was like, Trey, they need to kick you and Connor out of there, because every time you guys go up there, you guys kill a freaking good one. Yeah. And I wish Kansas would swap me in for them, because I have not killed a good one in Kansas. So that's all I need next year. Yeah. Going back to Kansas with a vengeance. But anywho, let's wrap this bad boy up.
Mm-hmm.
Go check out some Christmas stuff.
It's been a while. You forgot how to do this, huh?
No, I didn't. I was thinking about a sale.
I think
Black Friday.
Maybe
Black Friday's not here anymore, but I know Christmas is coming up. If you have a loved one, I am sure Out on a Limb's going to be running some Christmas sales, so I'll give you more details later. But go check out on a Limb. We're going to have them in the bio here. You can use code HNTA10. That's it. One, that's it. You were checking me on that code.
Yeah, a little bit. I know the codes, but I was like, is it the other one or this one? I don't know.
No, you guys got to go check that out. I'm sure they're going to be busy during the holidays, but if you're a man or you just want to buy your own self a Christmas present, like I like to do, I need a new backpack. Thanks, Christian. You're welcome, Christian. That's a kind of buy Christmas presents.
Hey, that's what I'm going to do this year, because Abby's in school, so it's coming out of my bank account. So.
Buying yourself a Christmas present?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
She was like, what do you want this year? And I was like, I don't know. I can just see it on the statements. So
let me talk to myself.
Yeah,
that's funny. And then we have another code with Exodus. If you guys need any sort of trail cameras or arrows or any of that stuff, go check them out. It's HA15 for 15% off, and they have the Exodus Vault now, which
cannot use
has a bunch of their cannot use codes, but they have the Exodus Vault for even more savings, which is pretty awesome. So I would recommend go checking that out. And also, I'm trying to get up on the rating and reviews for Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think we have 107 on Apple and we have 66 on Spotify. I'd love to get Spotify to 100 and then Apple Podcasts at 200. So there's a lot of you guys that listen every week that have not.
We need to start a war.
Review. We do.
Like
Spotify versus Apple.
Better. Exactly.
Okay, so I got some HA hats that I ordered, some camo ones, some of those Richardson ones, because we had an order and we didn't have any, so I ordered 12 more. Mm-hmm. Whoever can get higher, Spotify or Apple, we'll pick one of the reviews. I know you can't leave a review on Spotify with words, but you can leave the rating. If you leave us a rating or review, send us an Instagram DM, and we'll screenshot that and consider that an entry. But next podcast, we'll give away in a week or two. We'll give away a hat. So check that out.
How about around Christmas?
Yeah, we can do one around Christmas. Yeah, that's nice. Nice little gift. And one of our buddies, Tristan and Vanita, ordered a hat like a month ago, and I didn't have it, and I still haven't sent it to him. So I suck. But
just throw in a t-shirt, he'll be all right.
Oh, I haven't still. The reason I haven't sent it to him is because we didn't have that one in stock, but on the website it said we did. So I was like, frick. I still got to send that one to him. But anyways, yeah, leave us a rating and review, and we really appreciate you guys listening, even when we ramble and talk about our vacation and all of our future hunting plans. But we appreciate you guys, and hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving, better than COVID and better than my Thanksgiving. So catch you guys in the next one.
Jesus loves you.
Bye.